sent this to all the Regents with your email. I don't know if you got it because it's school email.
Okay.
So it's just a form that we have to turn in to the FCC. It has to do with the radio stations on campus. So I filled out as much as I could for you.
Okay.
Other than board member, you'll be.
Okay.
So I was just going to say, turn it into the FCC.
Okay. I will get it done for you.
How's everything else going? How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Things are going well. You know, I got your email. Now, it was attention to you that will pay you situation with students. It wasn't for you.
Okay.
You know, Daniel tried to send me something one time too, but he had my email wrong. So I don't know if maybe it got put in wrong somewhere. So I'll have to
Okay.
check that.
Okay. Double check. And then the log must be checked. So we'll look at it.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll get this done for you.
How are you? Good to see you.
Hello. How are you? Doing well. How are you?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Emporia State University. Very much, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that. TISA tries to call it a 4Ds now. Okay, yeah, thank you. Mics are always hot.
Sometimes you have to use your teeth.
They're hot. Okay, hot mics.
You know that I'm doing some productions of some of our teams here.
Wonderful.
Is that on your list?
I don't think so. I don't have to call you straight.
Hi.
You have success? Anybody have success? Oh, what would I do without you, Diana? Thank you.
Hello, how are you? I was in Cancun in September, end of September. Okay, no, not since. Planning the next one. Good, how about you?
Yeah. Yeah. It was good. We were kind of like a week ahead, but still pretty good. Still fun.
James, how are you?
Yeah, yeah.
I do.
How are you?
No, thank you.
Well done.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Hot.
That's going to be our fundraiser. We might be able to get near you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hey. Tell him. Yeah. He's gathered. Yeah. Is Carl in here? There he is. Okay.
Got enough room? I tend to take up space. Thank you for getting the dashboard to start moving.
I'm looking for Went. Is he in here? I see. All right, Regents, if I can get you to your seats, we're going to get started here. Got a couple that are still coming in. But we'll go ahead. Call this meeting to order. Here we are. Good to be together. Let me first just thank Emporia State for hosting us. I know there's a ton of work goes into setting all this up for our traveling road show. delightful. We're glad to be a part of Hornet Nation today. Let's start by approving the minutes from our September 20th and 21st meeting. You guys have those minutes. Are there any corrections? Just so you guys know, all your mics are on. You don't have to turn them on and off this time. So, do I hear any corrections, or do I hear an approval of our minutes from our September meeting? Anybody? Could be a long meeting if we don't get this one done.
So moved.
All right, I hear a
I would
motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye. 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 All opposed? All right, we got the minutes done. Let's bring up the one and only Elaine Frisbee to introduce the State University Athletic Departments for the Student Athlete Healthcare Task Force recommendations. Elaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am going to have the honor of introducing several athletics folks, but first just a reminder for the board. This is a continuation of what you heard from KU, K-State, and Wichita State in September. This is the follow-up to last year's task force efforts to look at how student athletes' medical care is being handled by the universities. And first off, I want to ask David Spafford, the local athletic director, our VP for Director of Athletics for Emporia State, to come up to the mic and present for Emporia State.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Emporia State. It's great to have you all here as we get ready to get moving forward with our meeting today. Again, thank you for taking the time to do an evaluation of our student athletes across the state of Kansas to make sure that we are making sure that they're being taken care of the appropriate way and giving them the opportunities to be successful as they represent our state across the nation. At Emporia State, we are an NCAA Division II member, proud member of the MIAA Conference, arguably one of the best conferences in Division II. We've got 8 sports on the women's side and 7 on the men's side. We also added disc golf this year as a collegiate sport, which we were number 2 in the nation on the men's side last year in our first year. So we're excited to get this year moving forward to go for a national championship on that level. Our student athlete accomplishments, our student athletes are performing at a high level academically with over a 3.38 GPA last fall. Competitively, we're at 118th in the country. And with our community service, as you can see, we have over 5,700 hours last year, and we were 11th in the country in service to our community here on our campus. Our student athletes make up over 10% of our full-time students here at Emporia State University, representing over 15 different countries. As we look at today's conversations and work towards our sports medicine side of the house, this is our current structure that we have here with our head team physician and our director of counseling services with a counselor that's specifically for athletics that we have that comes down to our offices at least a couple of times a week to help our student athletes. In addition, our head athletic trainer represents over 4 permanent staff members at this point in time with 2 graduate assistants, and we were able to begin our first assistant AD for strength and conditioning this last year and add an assistant to that staff. We've never had that here at Emporia State before, so it gives us an opportunity to be able to take care of our student athletes at a different level to compete for national championships as we move forward. So for our conversation today, we wanted to focus on the main elements of the executive summary that Yuska provided in front of us as we go forward. There are an additional 40+ items that are at the end of the presentation that I will not go through today, but it's for your reading pleasure at the time when you have that time to go through it all. But it does represent everything that we will be doing and sitting down and taking care of as an athletic department to take care of our student athletes. First off, to determine our formal arrangements with Newman Regional Health, we are currently in the process right now of working through a new memorandum of understanding that will include a team physician that they will provide for us in regards to our teams, and then also sideline emergency care for football and basketball. In August of 24, they will be providing us a new orthopedic surgeon that will be specific towards our student athletes and in addition to the community. Part of his office will include a shared athletic trainer that will work within his office and then will come to our athletic training facilities during the week to be able to help take care of our student athletes as we move forward. According to NAFTA, the National Association of Trainers, we are to have, with the number of student athletes that we have and the number of sports that go through the year for fall, spring, and winter, we are to have over 5.68 athletic trainers. So this will finally put us at a point where we have the appropriate number of care on our campus. In addition to the agreement, we also will be working with Ortho Kansas, with their surgeons there, to help take care of our student athletes, and our food service provider will also, we're in conversations right now so that they will help us on the nutrition side to take care of our student athletes. Number 2 on the executive summary is developing and working through the oversight and organizational structure and leadership. The goal and the recommendation is for us to be able to add onto our staff an associate athletic director for sports medicine. This will be in place by FY of 25, and the oversight will be over all of our sports medicine, our athletic training, our student overall welfare, which includes the mental health and nutrition and other items that will be a part of that, and our strength and conditioning program. We'll also have additional administrative roles, as you can kind of look there on the screen, to kind of help and take care of the things that we need to have that will be addressed here in this report. This position will report to the head team physician and also to the athletic director as we move forward per their recommendations. Next is our policy and procedure development and education and compliance. We're in the process right now of purchasing USCA's tool for policy tools to help develop additional EAPs and to put things into place that we need to have here on our campus and within our program. Additionally, on the educational side of things, we do present to our student athletes every year the EAPs at the first team meetings as we walk through that process, and additional other forms that they have to fill out through the NCAA, and the preseason compliance meetings where we walk through all the different compliance to get everybody up to speed so they know what they need to do and not do. Compliance and review wise, we do have everybody sign off on all the compliance items that we just mentioned above, and we will be also working through annual team physician and strength and conditioning staff and et cetera, and game day administrators to get everybody up to speed on that too. Alrighty, NCAA required health and safety education. So this will be addressed in the USOC policy principle number 5, which is further down in the program, and we'll get that taken care of along the way. And then our compliance and education, we will, at this point, since I've only been here for a year, 3 months or so, there's a number of things on our list of things to do, obviously, and in that process we need to have a staff manual that will address a number of things to help continue to create our culture of accountability on our staff and within our overall programs. In addition to that, we'll have a compliance training that we'll provide to all of our student athletes and also our staff in regards to annual training through the NCAA and USCA educational modules. And so we're able to allot that to specific individuals. We'll have accountability to be able to know when they took care of that business and pass those modules to get things taken care of. The performance reviews for personnel, again, this will be addressed in the management action plan that's towards the end. That will address principle number 2 that was there in regards to personnel qualifications, evaluations, and assessments. This is something that we'll coordinate with our Department of Human Resources on campus, and we'll have additional opportunities to sit down and do evaluations of all of our staff and all of our programs and develop overall plans of where we want them to be and the things we need to take care of as we move forward in our championship culture here. Staffing wise, as we addressed earlier, this is our current setup that we've got right now. The recommendations provide the opportunity for the Associate AD for Sports Medicine. Again, we will be adding a 4th full-time assistant athletic trainer and then adding a 2nd graduate assistant for strength and conditioning to equal 4. So as you can see here, some of the brighter orange are the 3 areas that will be a part of that. Once the agreement with Newman Regional is put into place, we'll add that part-time full athletic trainer to go into the org chart here as you see that. Finally, or almost finally, facilities. One thing that we're working on right now is we're planning to improve space and quality of our experience for our student athletes here on campus. We're right in the middle of a Title IX review and a facility master plan for athletics itself. We have gone through all the appropriate channels like we're supposed to report everything up through our campus and then through cable for approvals for all these types of opportunities we have in place. Finally, and then number 9, the documentation of records retention. Again, we'll address that through our management action plan and the principle number 6 along the process that we have in play right now. So as we look at things, the rest of the program that we have, and we won't go through everything here, but you can read through it as I mentioned earlier. The management action plan, there's over 48 total recommendations as we walk through it all. So we reviewed the whole process, identified everything in the overall review that USCA put in front of us, and we've identified each one of those, and we're going to work on putting together the overall recommendations and putting a staff member in charge of those, and we'll also put a timeline on when they need to be reviewed and accomplished and taken care of. So at this time, if you have any questions, be more to try to answer those for you.
Any questions? That was quite thorough. Good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, we're going in alphabetical order. So from Fort Hays State, Curtis Hemeke is here as he is the athletic director for Fort Hays, and I do believe their head athletics trainer will be doing some presentation as well, Nathaniel Hepner.
Thank you. Come on up.
All right, so my name is Nathaniel Hepner. I am the head athletic trainer at Fort Hays, and so on behalf of Fort Hays State, our president, Dr. Tisa Mason, and Curtis Hemeke, our athletics director, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'd also like to take this time to thank Dr. Jagger for his thorough and thoughtful work throughout the process on this task force and helping us through that process. So I promise I will attempt to be very brief but informative as I go through this. As the folks at Fort Hays know, I can get a little carried away, so here we go. Audits and third-party reviews can be a stressful time, but when you have an open and honest outlook, as we did here at Fort Hays, they can be hugely beneficial. So we were able to confirm the areas that we were doing well in with USCA advice and areas for growth, but we were also pointed out the areas for need or attention and given good constructive ways to work on those things. So at Fort Hays, we're excited about the creative ways that we've come up with to address these and not only just help our student athlete healthcare, but help our healthcare across the entire campus, and I think you'll see that as we go through here. So we've broken it down into early priorities based off of the comprehensive report. So this pertains to number 1, policies and procedures as it pertains to our development or our continued revision, as well as the education and compliance and the systematic review at the end of the year. So the recommendations from USCA was for us to separate our manuals out. From a medical side, we kind of knew what we were looking at, but I had to take a step back and see this from a coach's or an athlete's point of view and understand that what I might understand is not what they might understand. So separating these out, making them clear, clarifying them, and available so that they could really read and understand was a priority of ours. As well as developing sports psychology and behavioral services and strength conditioning policies and procedures. And like I said, you'll see in our staffing plan, we've created a 3-year phase staffing plan that addresses this, but we're looking to put an athletic trainer within our health and wellness services to help bridge that gap with sports psychology and behavioral sciences, as well as 2 hybrid positions that are athletic trainers and certified strength conditioning specialists within our strength and conditioning department. The education and compliance, just to make sure that we had that in place. So at Fort Hays, you've heard from a lot of the different schools, and they do it a lot of different ways. So within our sports medicine department, we have an annual preseason education that includes our Ellis County EMS. We collaborate, we work together, we run through protocols, and that's kind of been in place. The MIAA, which is a conference that Fort Hays is in, has instituted mandatory documentation for administrators to do policies and procedures, and you'll see EAPs as well. And so we went through that this year. And then the coaches, what we've done is a one-on-one, the head athletic trainer for that sport, along with the coach and the staff, will go through their specific venue and cover all the different pieces so that they are aware and understanding as they move through that, as well as the EAPs and education and compliance with the policies and procedures. The student athletes, again, in those compliance meetings, a lot of stuff is done. So what we're going to do is the USCA provides education modules so that we can get all of these things completed and prove compliance on and be consistent across the board, so that it's not the basketball athletic trainer, it's consistent across the board, and we have tracking and compliance through that. And then a formalized review process for disciplinary support. We have a structure, and we've formalizing the paperwork and the process on how we're going to use a disciplinary system if need be, if policies and procedures are broken. So the systematic review, we've annually, the head team physician and myself have met and made a concerted effort every year to advance or improve or revise anything that we see fit. And so we're going to continue that process. But through this audit process, we've become very close with our legal counsel and our internal auditor, and adding them in for another pair of eyes who's not necessarily in the medical field but can add some of the legal insight on that, I think is a big step for us. So priority number 2, obviously it's the EAPs. We've hit a lot of this stuff, same criteria there. So development, again, I took a very coach-minded approach on how the EAP should be looked at. Obviously my staff and a medical professional can look at that and understand what it says, but I wanted to make sure that our coaches could look at that and understand how to act and how to enact that plan without question. And so we've really put an emphasis on satellite imagery with locations of different things, as well as kind of a quick reference guide to medical conditions that they might come in contact with, how to treat that, and how to get care taken care of while EMS is on its way. So again, as venues change or as things happen, we're going to continue to add content, what the coaches like or what they feel like they need in there, but also new facilities coming down the pike. We're going to continue to add those as we go. So again, the education and compliance is very similar as far as how we're going to approach that, but through the work with our sports information director, we're going to put all of this information on our athletics website so that it's public access. It can be accessed by parents, students, coaches at any time, so it can be immediately updated. And we've also created hard copies of our policies and procedures and our emergency action plans for all of the athletic training rooms, for the administrative office, and each of the coaches. And for us to be able to check to make sure everything's up to date, we have a checklist in place so that as policies change, we can go through and make sure that we've checked off every hard copy policy and procedure book out there to make sure that it's been updated. Again, with any emergency action plan, there needs to be a debriefing period. And so Ellis County EMS and ourselves work very closely. We always talk about ways that we can improve or how we can work on different things. And so they played a big role in a lot of our EAPs on what's easier for them to access our facilities. And that changes from year to year because things change. And so that's a big part of what we've done is collaborate with them and debrief, as well as coaches and administrators, how we could do better, what they saw, and how we could be quicker and more effective. The systematic review is the very, very same thing. Team physician and myself. Again, Ellis County EMS is a very big part of that. And again, legal counsel, adding in kind of the legal side of things, another pair of eyes to give us some insight. Priority number 3, we're develop specific emergency action plans for non-traumatic catastrophic events. Specifically, the moderate or severe traumatic brain injury. And here's where I talk about the organization or the clarification of our policies. So within our concussion policy, we had the differentiation between all those things, where we kind of understood concussion versus moderate to severe. We've kind of separated those out and made specific bullet points and called it our traumatic brain injury policy. So they're all held within that, but they're clearly defined and clearly separated out. Exertional rhabdomyolysis, we have a specific standalone EAP for that. And then exertional collapse and non-exertional collapse, our student health center, our health and wellness center, the physician there is a former cardiologist. So I'd be remiss if we didn't utilize his knowledge in that area. So he's helped us develop those EAPs specific to those events. Skip that, there we go. So again, the NCAA required education piece of this, I hit on it a little bit. So USCA provides a lot of different tools that help people out. The MIAA, our conference, has purchased a module that provides us with these education pieces that are going to meet our compliance. And so we're just utilizing the partnerships that we have to use the resources available to us. So we've started to implement this in. So here over Thanksgiving break, we're going to send it out to all of our student athletes and all of our coaches so they can complete these modules, which will include content and quizzes to show compliance and competence in the area, so that when they come back in for the second semester here, they will have completed that to show that they are competent and have been educated on those areas. It also gives us an idea of tracking and to make sure that we are compliant with all of that. So we're excited about utilizing that. Number 5 is staffing. And I'm sure you've heard a lot about the staffing, and this is kind of the meat and potatoes of my presentation, because a good staff is going to be able to enact all these things and keep these good things rolling. So first of all, like I said, we have a 3-year phased plan. Obviously, year 1 is this year. We've been hard at work at Fort Hays, and we're kind of in the process on a lot of these things. So year 1 for us was organizational alignment and title changes. So if you can look at the graph, everything that's highlighted in yellow is going to be the changes. So we took a conservative effort to move strength conditioning underneath of our umbrella. The NCAA says that they need to have medical oversight and they need to have approval for their lifting plans, and the easiest way for us to get that done was to move them underneath of our umbrella so that we could collaborate moving forward. So year 2, as it pertains to athletic trainers, again, we're gonna put an athletic trainer in the Health and Wellness Center, which is gonna help take care of the general population, as well as cheer and dance, which is currently underneath of our structure within athletics. The reason that's important is because Fort Hays State carries the highest number of athletes out of all the region schools. And so we're adding women's wrestling competitively next year, so that would spike our number even higher. So by shifting cheer and dance, which is not an NCAA sport, over to an athletic trainer in a wellness center, which is probably more appropriate, we don't spike our numbers and we stay consistent with our medical care from that standpoint. Again, the 2 hybrid positions for strength conditioning, we're going to replace 2 graduate assistants with full-time dual credentialed people. So we don't gain staff members, but we gain valuable knowledge and insight from people who are more educated, if that makes sense. And then for year 3, we're going to create a model to where the Wellness Center can prove a model through documentation and athletic training billing so that we can support more athletic trainers to come in. And as you've heard before, graduate assistants and the professional athletic training are going away. So we had to find a creative way to replace those positions. And so in year 3, we feel like we have a very good setup to be able to phase out our last graduate assistants and fill them with assistant full-time athletic trainers. So as opposed to as it pertains to team physicians, in year 3, we already have a signed, sealed, delivered female primary care sports medicine physician. So currently we have Dr. Wallstrom, who does all of it for us. This will be a huge addition for him. As you can imagine, for one person to be in charge of 520 student athletes is quite a bit. So the addition of another person is really going to help him in his cause. And like I said, this is a Hays Med outside of our organization thing that we've collaborated with that will happen in the 25-26 school year. Strength conditioning personnel, we've already kind of hit on this as far as year 2, so next year, phasing out those graduate assistants and replacing them with hybrid athletic trainers and CSCS credentials. Where this helps us, again, is as a GA doesn't have as many administrative responsibilities or experience versus a full-time dual credential professional will. So we're going to gain a lot there, but we're also going to gain in the collaboration and the work together with our strength conditioning to where we can accomplish we can accomplish rehab and injury prevention within our strength and conditioning underneath of the sports medicine umbrella. Within year 3, those positions are going to help us address our nutritional personnel issue, and they're going to obtain sports nutrition certificates to help us have nutrition-specific people within our structure that will then report through Hayes Med to a sports nutritionist that we've kind of created a partnership with. So in year 2, they come in year 3, they will have this sports nutrition credentialing so that we can now utilize nutrition professionals within our system. Mental health personnel, we have a great system at Fort Hays. We just needed to kind of bridge that connection or mesh the 2 programs. So adding that athletic trainer within the health and wellness center is going to help do those things. As well as the EMR or electronic medical record system, we'll be able to collaborate and work under the same system and share information. And again, that'll allow us to bill for athletic training services, which will then provide us a revenue source to be able to provide these athletic trainers down the pike. Enhanced healthcare programming as it pertains to nutrition. This was a big one for us. Again, we've partnered with Hayes Med and their sports nutritionist, but mainly USCA wanted access to nutritional clinical care. So our Health and Wellness Services Center has already contracted with a nutritionist that specializes in eating disorders and disordered eating. So we took the next step to work with a sports nutritionist, so we kind of had 2 different revenues or 2 different avenues to get the answers for our student athletes. As far as the education piece, we've kind of implemented the Tiger Athlete Wellness Initiative, which is a sports medicine run kind of town hall presentation or meeting, if you will, where we bring in professionals. The student athletes are welcome to come. We've gained numbers throughout the year, and we've really had a good feedback on what we're providing, where we've had nutritionists, sports psychologists, our team physician, and different professionals present and be open for questioning. And so it usually lasts about an hour, and 30 minutes of that is presentation, and 30 minutes is great questions from our student athletes. So I think they really, really enjoy that, and that's been a huge addition for us. And again, the disordered eating and the problems with nutrition there has been taken care of through our wellness center. And then Kylie Hansen, formerly Hansen, she's just married, so it's Kylie Keller, has D1 experience, Kansas State, through their program, and she's on board and willing to help us program for our teams when they're on the road, teams that have fuel allotments as far as Gatorade, and it kind of utilize what we already have and make us more efficient for our student athletes. Documentation and records retention. So again, we needed a process in place so that we could have documentation completed as soon as care was rendered. And when you have an athlete to athletic training ratio of 1 to 50, sometimes that's a little bit harder. So what we've done at Fort Hays is we've created medical dictaphones. So if you've been in a doctor's office, you might see them walking around with a dictaphone. That allows us to document on that patient as soon as we're done with them, so that we can then go back to the computer and have it transcribe that so we can put it in their medical file. So that was a creative way for us to meet that qualification and get it done immediately without taking away from patient care. Have a process for strength and conditioning documentation and workout approval with medical oversight. Again, that's going to be taken care of in the staffing plan with the athletic trainers being a part of that staff. The process for the student athletes to be examined after every season. We just completed our fall sports, so we just completed our exit evaluations with our student athletes, which gives them an opportunity to tell us anything that might have happened, which then we can then refer. So I had a group of the athletes come in, and we've swapped Dr. Wally, but the system is working, and this is allowing them to be able to check up at the end of their season, and for some of them at the end of their career, to make sure that they're taken care of before they leave Fort Hays State. And then it talks about having a unified EMR system. Within that, I talked about joining with Health and Wellness Center, utilizing their EMR so we have a unified, so we can collaborate on that and use one solid system and I'm very excited about that. As far as future engagement opportunities, again, we have a facility in the works in which we'll have a dedicated doctor's office. It's about 3 times the size of our current athletic training room, and we'll have dedicated space for sports psychologists to come in and provide consultation, as well as team physician to provide care within that facility. The memorandum of understanding with Hayes Med, we've always had a deal with Hayes Med, and we've always had our team physician from Hayes Med. We're working on, through our legal counsel, the memorandum of understanding, which will include those 2 physicians I've talked about, Dr. Wallstrom, who's current, along with the new physician who's coming in, but that'll also include Kylie Hansen-Keller, who is the nutritionist, to have that be a part of the memorandum of understanding as we move forward. And then with the athletic healthcare administrator transition, with the title changes, with myself taking over that role, within that 3-year phase plan, we have an accumulation of administrative responsibilities to where that phases in over time, and I can take over all those roles as I move forward. And as far as staffing, we believe that we've created such a model here that it should be self-sustainable, and hopefully be able to add staff as we grow. So thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions.
Questions, comments from the group? All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and Regents, the last presentation we'll have today, we do have Jim Johnson, Director of Athletics for Pittsburgh State, but actually a member from last year's task force, Dr. Ryan Sorrell, who will also be presenting. He is the team physician and the athletics healthcare administrator, which is a position that is required by NCAA regulations. So I'll turn it over to them.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us out to Emporia and for allowing us some time to present on kind of closing what has been, I guess, over a year-long process now into the evaluation of the care of the student athletes for state institutions, and then getting that feedback from USCA through that process, and then now as we get into another academic year, how the universities have taken that information, given a chance to move forward and make some changes for the betterment of how we take care of our student athletes. So, as mentioned, I'm Ryan Sorrell. I'm one of the team physicians at Pittsburgh State. Do primary care sports medicine, also the athletics healthcare administrator for the university. We'll get rolling here. So, let's see. There we go. So. The way we'll kind of go through this, taking the areas of potential weakness or areas for growth that USCA identified when they did their on-site evaluations at Pittsburgh State, and then kind of addressing what are some of the things we're already in place, some of the things that are working on, and kind of our future plans. So first kind of big area, staffing and resources. Areas they identified for potential growth, including nutritional resources, mental health and wellness providers, strength and conditioning providers, athletic trainers, and then within staffing, what are our reporting lines, our organizational charts, and lines for accountability. So some of the things that we've already have in flight or working on here, so coordinating additional nutrition resources through Aladdin, which is the food provider for the university. They have staffed nutritionists, and through an agreement with them are going to provide some additional counseling resources and education to our student athletes. In addition to that, our head strength coach has gone and gotten a certificate into some additional training in nutritional. So again, trying to utilize existing staff and kind of broaden their breadth of scope of practice. The additional part that's not listed here, so since the evaluation was done on our campus, our student health facility has gone under the umbrella of one of the local healthcare institutes, so CHC. Community Health Clinics of Southeast Kansas has taken over our student health. Within that, they do have additional resources for nutrition, so that's an area we're looking into growing that collaboration within. Identifying mental health point person, so we've, as the changes in student health have happened, two things have taken place. One, we've maintained a mental health provider who is within that already. She's a former volleyball athlete at Pittsburgh State, has a good understanding of some of the stresses and nutritional needs of our athletes. So she's been maintained on staff. Additionally, this provides a kind of gateway into the additional mental health services that CHC provides to the broader community and clinic area. So if an athlete's identified, they get their initial counseling at student health. If additional services are needed, then they're funneled into a system that has a broader capacity to help take care of them. In terms of staffing, just like across the state, we're all dealing with shortages in athletic training availability, recruiting, staffing. Looking to broaden that, we currently have 4 active athletic trainers on staff. We have 2 positions posted to add 2 additional athletic trainers with an ultimate goal to add a 7th within kind of the next 3-year window as we continue to grow our sports medicine program. One of those staffing positions is we are adding an additional sport of women's soccer starting next academic school year. So we'll be a dedicated athletic trainer for that sport, and then the 7th would be a additional potential assistant for track and float to help cover additional sports. And then revising and clarifying the athletics organizational chart. We had one that existed. It was a little bit convoluted and confusing of who reported to who as we added positions over the last several years and kind of grew our sports medicine and athletics department. And so we've kind of refined and revised that in terms of direct reporting structures of who reports to who, in terms of athletic trainers reporting to the head athletic trainer, the director of safety, myself as kind of secondary reporting structures, and then our athletics director. Strength and conditioning also falling in there, as long as the same line as our head athletic trainer, and then some of our GAs reporting to him. So tried to straighten that out, and I think it's been good this year in terms of communication. I kind of hear from everybody, and it's been a lot more streamlined. Annual reviews. So an area that was identified was developing a process to formalize how we review our policies and procedures that are in place, making sure, are they up to date, are they best practice, are there gaps in the policies and procedures and emergency action plans that we have. So kind of taking that recommendation, I sat down with our safety coordinator, our athletic trainers. We went through line item, what policies and procedures do we have? We updated the ones that needed updated. We found areas where we needed to add additional ones. Also, the university and the athletics department has purchased the USCA policy and procedures packet, which has helped us kind of fill in some of the gaps that we needed to fill in. And then moving forward, this will be a yearly review prior to the start of every academic season. We'll start to sit down and review where are we at, what went well, what didn't, what do we need to do to move forward. Part of the evaluation process that USCA did, they met with the student athletes, provided surveys. There was areas where we felt like we were doing a good job doing preseason education training on policies, procedures, emergency action plans to the student athletes. And turns out, those initial meetings, not everybody's listening and not everybody's taking in all that information. It's a lot. I played baseball at Pitt several years ago, and I remember sitting in those meetings and I couldn't tell you what we covered. And so providing second passes at some of that information, either through the season or as debriefs at the end of the season, opportunities for student athletes to provide feedbacks to coaches, athletic trainers. What did we do well? What did we not? Let's grow as we go instead of be 2 years down the line and found out that there's been an issue all along. And then as part of that, end of season debriefs, coaches already meet with athletes at the end of the season, so formalize a process for providing a satisfaction survey to collect some data on, hey, what went well, what didn't in terms of the health care you received through your trainings. So I mentioned some of this, so policies and procedures. I think 3 identified emergency action plans in big areas. So mental health, we've written a new mental health policy and procedure, and then off of that emergency action plan, formalizing who to call, what are our resources available in the area, how to get the athlete services in time of crisis or need in an efficient and effective manner. Concussion protocol that had been revised last year, but through this process figured out that the new policy had not been yet published, so now that's been updated on the website. And then our emergency action plan for cervical spine injuries or catastrophic injuries. Again, that was kind of lumped into a broader policy and procedure document that existed that kind of covered everything. And the opportunity to spread some of those things out so it's a little bit easier access on the website to better click and check, and you don't have to scan through a document that's 600 pages long to find the thing you're looking for. So kind of streamline that process a little bit. Best practices, so areas that we had for growth, so electronic medical records and medical record keeping. We have moved to the sportswear medical record keeping for our athletic trainers to document services provided in the training room or on the sidelines so we can keep track of what's going on there. We've also, in our partnership, so I work for Freeman Health Systems as the healthcare provider of the university. Within our EMR, we have built charts for every student athlete, so when things are needed, we have a place where insurance is already on file, records are kept, images are kept, operative reports, so all that's within our record system now, which was a big undertaking at first for our athletic trainers to help us get that, but now that it's up and going, it's a yearly update that has been effective. Baseline scoring, so we're already doing baseline scoring on concussions. We've added some additional things to our strength and conditioning program and our head strength and conditioning coach in terms of doing some additional baseline testing in terms of mobility, strength, identifying areas of need or weakness that an athlete may be at risk of injury, trying to prevent the injury from happening in the first place. And I think we've seen some good results from that as this early academic year has gone through in our athletes. Again, mentioned continuing to grow our nutritional services and our internal certifications to make sure that we're providing the best education, the best resources to our student athletes to make sure that they're fed and fueled for competition. Updating our rehabilitation equipment, so we have multiple athletic training rooms and sites. Through the partnership through Freeman Health, we've updated some of the on-site training rooms on campus at the football facility, and have updated some of the equipment in our on-site physical therapy and athletic training room, and then continue to grow in our weight room. And then additional things that you assume you have on campus and you do a survey, and we're short a few, so we've purchased some additional AEDs. Every athletic site has at least one AED on site, and as well as some additional portable ones that are available to the athletic training staff, so rapid availability to emergency response devices when needed. And then some of the areas that were identified through USCA that we feel we're doing well and they acknowledge, so our partnership, so like I said, I work for Freeman Health System as a primary care sports medicine. They employ myself as well as our head team orthopedist, Dr. Zafuda. We do on-site training rooms for the student athletes weekly. And then Freeman also staffs part of the athletic training staff in a partnership. So continue to grow that. We just signed an additional 5-year memorandum of additional promises for services and support. So excited to see where that continues to grow. And as mentioned, the Community Health Center for Southeast Kansas taking over the Student Health Center is providing additional resources. On-site physical therapy, Freeman Health System employs a physical therapist and a physical therapy assistant. There's a clinic on-site in the athletics, our main athletics building. That has provided a great opportunity for offloading some of the rehab responsibilities of some of our athletic trainers, so post-operative or long rehab processes that require a lot of time, and so we've been able to offload some of that to the on-site physical therapy and allow the athletic trainers to be able to manage their day-to-days more efficiently. The good ratio of athletic trainers here, so this is, I guess, an asterisk that's assuming we are able to fill the positions that are posted, but really excited for the opportunity for that area of growth and be able to cover and take care of our student athletes in the most appropriate way. And then through Freeman Health and now through the partnership through CHC, the wide access of specialists and subspecialists available to our student athletes with rapid access to care, diagnostic studies, imaging. Both institutions have been very helpful and gracious in working athletes in when needed, so and get them taken care of in a timely manner and get them back on the field of play as soon as we can. So with that, if there's any questions or concerns.
All right, what questions do we have? Regent Winter, make sure you speak into a mic if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you for well-prepared presentation. Could you comment a little bit on mental health? To what extent do you find, if any, do you find an increased need among athletes, student athletes, for mental health treatment?
Sure. I think there's two parts to it. Part of it is some of the stresses that exist today, whether that's social media, kind of going through the recent pandemic and some of the mental health stresses that created. There's a greater burden or bearing on some of the student athletes, so it's definitely more prevalent. I think there's also maybe less of a stigma now than there were in years past, so there's an openness to acknowledge, hey, I need help, I'm struggling with this issue, or need a place for that. So I think this is something we've known for a while, and I think it's come to the forefront in terms of not just in sports medicine, but in the greater communities and general public in general, that identifying these kind of issues, providing an area for somebody to seek counsel and aid, and then continuing those services in a timely manner. I think that's a shortage across medicine in general that we have trouble filling, and as we continue to work forward, I think that's of the utmost importance that we provide that mental health resource for our student athletes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Can you go back about 5 slides?
Oh boy.
Just got a quick question.
You gonna ask my question?
Yeah, I think it's important.
Policies
Regent
and
Ice and I were having a kind of keep going backwards if you can. Right there. Is that you?
That is
You
not
played
me.
baseball, no?
No, I was a pitcher, much less of an athlete than that guy.
All right. Well, thank you for your presentation. We want to wish you luck against Indianapolis this weekend as the playoffs start.
Appreciate
So
it. Thank
go
you.
get them, Gorillas. All right. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I may, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the additional women's sports programs that were highlighted today. I mean, it's exciting to see, the expansion of those opportunities for our female athletes. So thank you.
That's great.
And the addition of Frisbee golf at Emporia State. That's a very exciting.
Is that named after you?
Yes. So, Regents, we will be following up with you for next steps. If you want a regular report from our student health centers, from the athletics departments, whatever the board is thinking for next steps.
Yeah, thank you. You guys did a great job through this process, all the athletic departments. I actually learned a lot through this, and I think all 6 got better through this process. So well run, and thank you everybody for your participation. All right, let's move on to introductions. I know Wichita State's got some, so we'll start with President Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Regents, Dr. Flanders, Regent Roth. It's good to see you back today, healthy, and with us today. So we've been on a little bit of a hiring spree with deans, and I have 3 of them I'd like to introduce to you today. A couple of them were made possible by retirements, and then one was a vacancy that was created when Dr. Lefevre became our provost. So we'll start with Dr. Jennifer Friend, who couldn't be here in person. There she is on Zoom. Dr. Friend is the new Dean of College of Applied Studies. She started at WSU in January. Jennifer comes to Wichita State from Rockhurst University in Kansas City, where she was the Associate Provost for Academic Affairs and Dean of the College of Art and Sciences. Previously, she spent 12 years at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where she was Associate Dean of the School of Graduate Studies. She has a PhD in Urban Leadership and Policy Studies and Education from MKC, and is the co-author of the book Great Expectations, What Kids Want from Our Urban Public Schools. I have Marie Bukowski is here, if she can stand. Marie is a new dean of our College of Fine Arts. She started in August. Previously, she served as Associate Dean of the College of Arts and Director of the School of Art at Kent State University. Marie began her studies at Carnegie Mellon University, where she received a Bachelor of Fine Arts and went on to receive her Master's of Fine Arts in Painting and Printmaking from the University of Pennsylvania. Marie is an internationally recognized printmaker, included in public collections and museums in countries such as Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Mexico, the Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, and Spain. And the last one we have is Dr. Brent Mai. He is the new dean of our libraries. He started just a couple of weeks ago. He previously served as the library dean at the University of North Florida, Fairfield University, and Concordia University. And before that, he was director of business school libraries at Vanderbilt and Purdue Universities. He's a native of Western Kansas, and he earned his doctorate of education from Vanderbilt University and his Master of Library and Information Sciences from the University of Texas at Austin. Please welcome our newest deans, Wichita State.
Welcome to the team. Other introductions? Yes, President Hush.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, Regents and everyone else as partners of higher education and friends. Emporia State University is incredibly proud today to host this meeting. Just want to give another shout out, as you mentioned, Chair Rolfe, to our ESU team has facilitated everything today to happen, as well as the relationship and partnership we have to work with KBOR and making it happen. It's two of us. So speaking of partnerships, that's what we've been doing in relationships a lot around the area. When we met with or had discussions with the city and county a couple months ago, let them know about today's meeting. They said, you know, mid-November, we'd like to make it weather appropriate. So just want to give a shout out to the city and county for making a perfect weather day.
Chamber Day.
Also, we've been doing a few things here on campus, change-wise and efficiencies. I'm glad everybody maybe this morning was involved in this morning's meetings for SCOPs and COPs. It lasted 26 minutes. We're proud of our efficiencies here. The warning label, though, it can be contagious. So obviously the Regents tomorrow will be meeting with a lot of our representatives and leadership groups throughout Emporia State University. We're incredibly excited, and the groups are, to meet with you and express comments and questions. The shared governance is incredibly important for us. You'll be meeting tomorrow with our President, Vice President, Kim Simons and Mallory Bishop. I don't know if they're here, but please stand. Also our Staff Senate, President, Vice President, Maria Solis and Shelby Clark. And finally, and a key driver of everything we do here at the university, it is about Hornet Nation, about students, students, students. I'd like to introduce our ASG President, Sophia Dawson. Sophia, please stand. Sophia is a senior mate. Sophia is a senior majoring in business administration with a concentration in human resource management. She hails from Medicine Lodge, Kansas, and transferred to Emporia State from Butler County. We appreciate that relationship with Butler. In the fall of 22, upon graduation, Sophia plans to attend graduate school to pursue a degree in higher education administration. Alongside Associated Student Government responsibilities, Sophia participates in Future Business Leaders of America, FBLA, United Methodist Campus Ministries, Blue Key Honor Society, the Honors College, and the PEO Sisterhood. Also, the Vice President is Camila Boria. So thank you for allowing the introductions. Thank you, team. It would go unanswered, and it's important to recognize, again, the team that made this possible, particularly Sarah McKernan, who's our Chief of Staff. Thank you.
President Flanders.
Yeah, I have an exciting introduction. No one is more excited about this introduction than I am. And I want to, and you'll hear from him later in the agenda, but I want to introduce Adam York as the Director of Government Relations for the Kansas Board of Regents. Adam served as Director of Government Affairs for the National Sorghum Producers, focused on federal policy initiatives, and served 6 years as congressional staff in the United States House of Representatives in roles ranging from legislative director to deputy chief of staff for various members of Congress and the Kansas delegation. We're excited to have Adam join our team.
Welcome, Adam. Yeah. Other introductions? All right. Thank you. That was robust. That's good. All right. Report from the chair. Well, welcome to Emporia State University once again. Thank you. You guys are great hosts, and I smelled what smelled like fresh popcorn. I think a couple of Regents got back there, so during our next break, you might want to head to the back of the room.
It's fun to watch you work, so I got some popcorn.
So thank you, President Hush and team, for hosting us. I also want to thank the KU team that hosted us last month. Great visits to KU and KU Med. Thank you guys for getting that all organized and being great hosts. Also, just want to recognize that Regent Ice was inducted in the Kansas Business Hall of Fame in the last month right here on this campus. So congratulations to the Hall of Famer right here. And he said he'd appreciate if we'd call him Hall of Famer for the rest of this meeting.
That's not true. Wonderful day. Thanks to everyone for hosting.
Yep. I also just want to recognize Apply Kansas, which is something we've been after for a while, had 10% increase in high school participation this year over 2022. So great work on that. And also, I just appreciated the Apply Free Day and everybody getting involved in that. That was November 7th through the 9th. And I was at the state semifinals and finals for soccer, class 1 through 4A, and they mentioned it before every game there, which was pretty cool too. So I love that we're trying new things, and we are looking forward to our visit tomorrow and our plans to be with student, faculty, staff, and community members. Thanks for organizing that. On a personal note, I realized last time I was a big head in the room. It's much better just to be in the room with you all. And I also realized I mentioned that I was dealing with cancer, but didn't tell anybody what kind or what I was going through. And there was a newspaper article about the next day, of which I was never offered the opportunity to provide comment. So just a little more background on that, just so you guys know. It was just a little over 2.5 months ago. I did an executive physical, and by Providence, with no symptoms, found a tumor that ended up being about that big, just over my spleen, under my left 2 ribs. And the great team at the KU Cancer Center and KU Med cut me open from the bottom of my ribs to below my belly button and took that out about 6 weeks ago. And I'm glad to say I'm cancer-free right now. I'm just be doing PET scans for the next 3 months, or next year every 3 months. So just very grateful. Many of you reached out to me along the process just to offer encouragement, prayers, and support. I felt greatly supported by the people in this room, the different campuses, my fellow regents as I went through that. My wife was a rock star through that, kept the house afloat with our 6 kids, and got a much-needed break last week. So very grateful for her and all of you. And I just want to highlight truly that the team at the KU Health Center and the teams that Dr. Samari and Dr. Gerard all played a part in developing, and I know President Linton feels the same way, were outstanding. And it highlights the importance of a regional cancer center here, one of the best in the country. And just to be able to drive up and get that kind of care was amazing. And I will say, too, they got recognized, I believe it was by Ford's, as the #1 place to work in the state of Kansas. And you could feel that culture from the hourly team members all the way up to the doctors, and consistent in their care and the way they communicate and move through things. So President Linton and I are both grateful. We were together on Saturday at the K-State Baylor game. We'd circled that game on our calendar at the beginning of this, that we're dealing with different kinds of cancers at different times. Our hard weeks were pretty lined up, and our recovery weeks were pretty well lined up. And we talked almost every day to each other through this. And so I just also want to recognize, thank President Linton for his friendship and encouragement along the ways through some of my darkest days in all this. He kept me going and reminded me that we were one day closer. And President Linton, today, we're one day closer to being fully recovered. So we sat together at that game and we drank some purple beer together, which neither of our systems is handling alcohol particularly well yet, but we told ourselves we're going to do it and we did it. So anyway, thank you all for your support and for getting me this far. So, and to answer the question everybody asked me how I'm doing, it's relative. Compared to 3 months ago, I'm about 80% of what I was. Compared to 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm about twice as good as I was. So, and I don't have cancer in my body anymore, so I'm way better than I have been. Anyway, thank you guys for that. I'll now pass it over to President Flanders for his report.
Right. Thank you, Chair Rolfe. And I also wanted to just follow up on some comments that Chair Rolfe made about our free application days, and really want to thank the entire system. I know that was an additional load for people on the campuses, but want to thank them for helping with that event and executing that event, and really looking to get those Kansans, those 3,600 that no longer go to higher ed that did 10 years ago. How do we get those students back into higher education? And you know, it's just not about us. It's about, as we looked at our workforce study that we commissioned, and you see of the new jobs, 80% require a baccalaureate degree, 18 additional percent, or up to 98%, some post-secondary education. And those are daunting numbers that we really need to address. So I thank all of our campuses at the universities, community colleges, technical colleges, and our independent colleges. And then to close my report, I want to congratulate one of our team. Hector Martinez, our Director of Adult Education, was elected as President-elect of the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, which is an association with a membership of 45,000 people. And so we congratulate Hector for that honor.
Great job, Hector. Questions for President Flanders? Okay. Let's hear from the Council of Faculty Senate Presidents. And let me welcome Dr. Donald Van Bergen. Oh, or his substitute.
I'm not Don, but I am here to represent him and his role as our president of the Council of Faculty Senate Presidents, reporting out to you. So thank you, Chair Rolfe, and also President Flanders and respective fellow regents for this opportunity. Our Council of Faculty Senate Presidents, I'm Joe Dowling, and I am the Wichita State University Faculty Senate President, reporting out to you today. And we meet regularly online, monthly, and we also communicate via email. And really our charge right now that we're really tackling is the Faculty of the Year Award that KWAR will be able to award this spring. Our Faculty Senate Presidents are working together to create the criteria and come to hopefully a common form that will ease the decision process for you. So that's what we're working on now. We're also particularly interested in the vacancies of Daniel Archer and Tara, and we're grateful this morning in our report to be able to get the links to the HR job descriptions so that we can have access to that to be able to disseminate to our respective constituencies, and are very interested in the search process and whether there's a search committee that's composed, and if so, will there be faculty representatives on that? We're particularly interested in having the candidate be knowledgeable of university systems, also the faculty role, and our university curriculum and instruction. And so we just want to share that as an interest from our Council of Faculty Senate President team as you move forward in the process. And that's my report for today.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
You did a great job subbing in. You might just get the job permanently. You got to be careful on that. All right. Let's have Student Body President Caleb Stout come up to report for the Students Advisory Committee. President Stout.
Good afternoon, Regents, President, Chancellor. It's great to be with you all today. It's been a minute since we were able to have a report with you all. It is worth sharing that we went over to KU and had our own little SAC retreat when the Board of Regents was in Lawrence. So first time I'd ever been on KU's campus. So thank you to Turner for hosting us. Great to be there. But what have we been up to as students? Well, we've been meeting roughly bi-weekly to just kind of discuss our goals and our interests as student leaders. And so whether that be within KBOR or just within our own institutions, and we're trying to collaborate as much as we can to figure out what that looks like moving forward. So where can we come alongside and partner with you guys, whether that be with the high school student dual enrollment and college credits, whatever it may be, or areas to take to the legislature. We started planning Kansas Higher Ed Day. That will be in February, thinking through what those policies will look like, what we want to talk about there. But just trying to get on the same page and figure out what's going on in the state of higher ed and what students are interested in. But overall, I think the number one goal for students throughout the state is just to make it to Thanksgiving break. So only a few more days. But we're excited to connect with you all at the upcoming breakfast in December. We hope to have some conversation points for you then, but until then, we'll still be figuring those out. So that's really all I have for you today.
Thank you. Questions or comments from President Stout? All right. Hey, you're one day closer to Thanksgiving break, too.
One day
So
closer.
here we go.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, Regent Lane, update on building a future dashboard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really excited to be here. And board, if you could take away just one word to describe where we are with our dashboard, we are forward. We've made progress. I want to thank Cindy Ferrier and the data team and Kelly Oliver, who've done a lot of work to help us get to the point where we're ready to move forward with our support metrics. So I want to do two things. Just quickly give some context to what this dashboard is all about. A year ago, July 2022, the board determined that we wanted to create a dashboard to allow us to stay highly focused on data that matters to student success. And so a committee was formed. Thank you, President Shipp, President Muma, for serving on that committee to help identify for Pillar 1, the pillar of helping Kansas families, how we would identify metrics to keep track of and to measure under the categories of affordability, access, and success. This is you have this presentation in front of you, board, so I'm not going to go through the timeline, but there's a timeline there to remind you about the progress and where we are and what has informed the work. So just to remind you about foundational metrics, those are what we would refer to as lagging measures, the things that we look at annually to see whether or not we are actually helping students move forward with their career goals. And the board approved the metrics that you see before us in the areas of affordability, access, and success. And the data team then took these metrics and created what is a very engaging and visually compelling dashboard that is currently active on our Kansas Regents website. So we have that information, and then the next step was to take a look at additional metrics. So today in Basque, we reviewed metrics that we think we need to add that would modify or enhance those foundational metrics. You can see that we've added percentage participating in co-requisite versus developmental education. We want to look at sufficient course load to ensure that our students have completed enough course loads to complete in a timely fashion. And then looking at high school enrollment by different equity groups to ensure that we are advancing access to post-secondary opportunities, particularly in the gen ed area. So the BASS team voted to support in adding these enhanced foundational metrics to our dashboard. So the big piece, the piece that I'm so thrilled to be able to share with you that we're ready to go on is identifying supportive metrics or support metrics. These are the leading indicators, the things that are actionable that we as folks engaged in higher ed can take action upon to improve, with the idea that if we approve the leading measures or support metrics, then we will influence success of those metrics that we look at annually. So you can see on the screen that there are 4 support metrics here. This data, the system already collects, so we'll begin looking at the data in January in our BASC meetings. Those things include FAFSA completion, looking at transfer students by program and transfer students who have gone through our system-wide transfer gen ed courses. We want to look at the number of students that are enrolled in concurrent and in the fall census, and again, looking at sufficient course load. So there are 4 of those that we already have data on. We also have 2 groupings, if you will, of support metrics that are important to measure whether or not our promising practices are helping to advance student success. And you can see that those are here under the headings of advising and grades or success. And there are sub-bullets under each of those. This is data that the system itself does not collect, but the campuses do identify. So we are working now with EAB Navigate. The campuses are all in the process of working on transition to that tool, so this data can become readily available in the system. In the meantime, the provost will be working with BASC members to identify how we might regularly engage in conversations so we know where these support metrics are. So in summary, let me say I'm excited. There's a one-pager at your place board so you can clearly see the foundational metrics and then the support metrics or supportive metrics that are in place. BASC approved these metrics. What's important to know is that these are not written in stone, that we will learn from these. We may adjust the metrics as we go. What's important is that we are looking at data regularly to determine if our promising practices in the system are actually helping to advance student success. So, BASC members, did I miss anything that was important that we discussed this morning?
Well done, and you were and are excited.
Yeah, I am. I'm very excited. It's been an 18-month journey so far, and we're almost there where we can use this data for a meaningful purpose. Thank you very much. I look forward to continuing the work.
Any questions for Dr. Lane? Yep, dashboards they're easy to talk about, man. They're a lot of work to get organized. So thank you to everybody who's helped participate in identifying these things, and it should make us better. So thank you. Let's run through the committee reports and consent agenda, then we'll take a break. That works for everybody. Let me start with someone you're all familiar with, Dr. Lane, to do academic affairs.
Thank you very much. It is a privilege to serve as chair of the Academic Affairs Committee. On October 31st, we spent time approving performance funding reports. You'll get to see those in January or February, I believe. Those are extremely informative and always encouraging to hear the great work happening across the system. Today we received several reports, and the first one I'll mention is that WSU presented on a dual credit course offered at Shawnee Mission South High School in the area of Arabic language. Provost Lefevre shared that this may be a temporary thing that WSU is asking permission to do as those who are already in that service area are building capacity to offer the language. So the BASC team approved that to move forward to your agenda today for consideration in approving their ability to offer concurrent credit to students that are in an Arabic language class. We also received reports from the Transfer and Articulation Quality Assurance report that's on system-wide transfers. We had a really engaging conversation about how important this work is to our students. We received a report on open education resources, again, significantly important to affordability, and we were able to hear from Tara Labar, Barry Bailey, and Mark Faber on things that the board and particularly BASC could do to help advance open education resources. Kelly Oliver and Cindy Ferrier provided the presentation on our dashboard, and then Dr. Carla Wiscombe, who, thank you Carla for stepping up as interim Vice President there for Academic Affairs. She provided us an update on what's happening in academic affairs. And then today, we ended our meeting with what will become a new Basque tradition, is asking the provost to share up to 3 minutes of good news happening on their campus. It was a great way to end the meeting, very inspiring, and I look forward to those reports continuing. Did I miss anything, Basque members? All right.
Questions for Dr. Lane? Good news is always good. It's good to highlight that. All right, Fiscal Affairs and Audit, Regent Benson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Fiscal Affairs and Audit Committee has been busy. Conducted our agenda call on October 31st and then met in person this morning where we had a busy agenda. First welcomed Emporia State's new CFO, Angela Woolgram, who's joining our group and is following in the steps of Diana Kuhlman, who is now taking on a new role here on the Emporia State campus. So welcome to Angela. We began today's agenda with KBOR's Director of Finance and Administration, Becky Potabel, who presented the board office's operating budget, including how the agency uses federal and state money for its operations. She then presented the annual internal audit of the alumni account for fiscal year 2023, and the committee was pleased to hear that no discrepancies were identified and that all transactions were found to be consistent with allowable uses. So thank you, Becky. Then reviewed the items on today's board agenda related to fiscal affairs. One item that came in after the agenda call between then and this meeting was Vice President Ball with PSU explaining their recent lease opportunity with the KBI. The committee then approved all of the items on today's consent agenda. The committee then discussed the fiscal year 2025 housing and food service rate proposals. A lot of discussion on this from the state universities, which will be on our agenda here this afternoon for first read. We discussed each request with the CFOs and the other campus staff to understand how they're balancing inflationary pressures while also keeping their rates affordable for students, which I know is important to us all. We voiced appreciation to the many parties on the campuses that work hard to balance the need for adequate revenues with these needs of the students. We then reviewed the appropriation language proposed by staff and endorsed the proposed drafts. The 3 tuition proposals from KU on this month's agenda are requested to improve simplicity and transparency for students. We then reviewed the Cancer Center program statement that is the culmination of many years of work by many people in this room and beyond, and for which will be the key for retaining the comprehensive designation from the National Cancer Institute. In news from K-State, they are seeking 2 bonds for housing. The Salina campus has been at max capacity for 5 years and has actually had to turn people away for housing. And at the main campus in Manhattan, they're seeking to renovate Strong Complex. That's been held offline for several years now. It was explained that K-State's debt burden will increase to 5.15%, but it's well below the 7% recommended threshold. I further remember that the increase for KU's 11th and Mississippi Gateway project arises from the evolution of the facility from focusing solely on football to include other multi-use facilities and to expand the usage of the facility beyond just football events. Wichita State Stadium project will also be bonded and repaid with their local property tax levy and will not be a debt of WSU itself. From our discussion on the board policy change for university employees, their spouses, and dependents, the other members of Fiscal Affairs approved of the change to offer an optional tuition assistance benefit for part-time staff, while I recused myself from that portion of the discussion. Director of Facilities Chad Bristow then gave us an update on the capital renewal initiative and explained that the new deferred maintenance report will be presented to us next month. And lastly, Vice President Frisbee talked briefly about the legislative post-audit that is underway on state university spending for DEI activities and foreign gift reporting. Legislative audit staff are interviewing campuses and working to arrive at a definition of DEI to collect data from the universities. And it's our understanding they plan to have that audit complete in February 2024. So with that, Mr. Chair, we would stand for any questions, and obviously appreciate Elaine summarizing a lot of activity that's happened today in a succinct form here.
All right. Any questions for the pride of Pittsburgh? No? Okay. I'm talking about Regent Benson, if you're wondering. All right, governance. This morning, the governance committee met with a lot of attorneys, it felt like. And after approving the minutes of its September 20th, 23rd meeting, we received an update from President Mason, President Shears, and President Burks on the affiliation between FHSU Northwest Tech and NCK Tech. The affiliation agreement is on the board's agenda today for consideration and possible approval. I recognize that meeting, I want to recognize again, it's one thing to figure it all out and get it on a piece of paper. It's another thing to lead your teams through that, and the three of them have shown just exceptional leadership through this whole process, and we're grateful for that. Next, we heard an update on work toward amending the board's non-reappointment policy to standardize notice requirements, and then we received a presentation on proposed new regulations for the Adult Learner Program and approved moving forward with the process to adopt those regulations. We then heard Emporia State's campus safety and security report, and you can all feel safe today, and had an orientation on the CEO compensation policy data and process for our new members. Any questions for me on governance? All right, hearing none. Let's kick it to the one and only Hall of Famer, Regent Ice, on the retirement plan.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So our committee addresses the Board of Regents retirement plans. The beneficiaries of those plans are folks at KWAR staff or at our institutions. As of the end of June of this year, at the end of our year our assets exceeded $6 billion. We have semi-annual meetings. The most recent one was on October 17th. Our investment consultant, Advanced Capital Group, presented a review at that point. As you would expect, we carefully watched our investment options and their performance. Based on that report, we eliminated one investment option and two more continue to be on the watch. We approved some updates to our charter and vendor management documents. Those are on our agenda later for possible approval. We also adopted some new plan provisions. Those included past employees being able to do rollovers, as well as some. Okay. All right. Well, I gave a really good report. Thanks, everybody. Okay. The short version is we have a retirement plan with assets that exceed $6 billion. We had a semi-annual review that, as you would expect, we look at the investments. Potentials, one, we eliminated after the report from our consultants. Two are on watch. We approved some updates to the charter and our vendor management document. Those will be on our agenda for a possible improvement. And then we updated some provisions of those plans. And then finally, two of our advisors presented to us a new type of plan that would potentially be available to replace retirement plans and potentially be a new default. At present, we are thoughtfully considering that. I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Regent Ice? Well done. All right. Okay. Now entertain approval of our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve? Or any discussion?
So moved.
All right. Thanks, Regent Dicus. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Regent Winter. Thank you. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, we're through consent agenda. We'll take a break, but before we go to a break, I just want to recognize we don't always have a lot of elected officials from the state attend our meetings. I saw State Senator Jeff Longbine come in, who's always been a great friend to higher education, so please welcome Senator Longbine. He tried to sneak in, but he wasn't sneaky enough. So, all right, we'll take a 15-minute break and be back at 3:15 sharp. We're gonna have to install those bells like they have in grade school.
Culinary.
All right. All right, we're on to consideration of the discussion agenda. We're going to start by receiving the results of the FAFSA Challenge Awards. Regent Lane and Tara. Tara, come on up.
Thank you. I am excited to bring you your 2023 Kansas FAFSA Challenge Award winners today. In September, we recognized 16, here we go, there we go, 16 different high schools across Kansas. The schools are divided into their CASA classifications. So we have 6 categories, 6A all the way down to 1A, and there's 2 winners in each division. There's the highest FAFSA completion rate and the most improved FAFSA completion rate. And then we added an additional category for that 7th category for schools that are virtual schools or academies or doing different types of education that don't quite fit in our CASA classifications. So on our website, you'll see that the top 5 schools in each division are listed, and I'll show you that in a minute. And you can see our results are calculated using the KSE senior class information, high school FAFSA completion rates, and the Kansas FAFSA tracker. So this is what our award looked like. And each of our winners has received their award and recognition on social media and recognition on our website, and I hope to send them a recording of this presentation as well. So to kick us off here, we have the 6A winners. We have, it was school. So Blue Valley Northwest is our highest FAFSA completers this year in Overland Park, Kansas, and our most improved FAFSA completion is Wichita High School Northwest. And so you can see kind of the size of that senior class. Blue Valley Northwest had 59% completed, and Wichita Northwest is up 60% over last year. So, and believe it or not, if you can kind of see, they're also the 3rd high school in the highest completers list. So this is really a way to recognize schools that have made some improvement or put some efforts in from the last year, and this is, I think, a great example of that. So 5A category, we have Sumner Academy of Arts and Science and Newton High School. Sumner's tough to beat. They have owned this category in the highest FAFSA completion rate for 3 years, but just so you know, they're not sitting back. They've improved their record every single year. So 83% completed from Sumner, and Newton High School, 53% completed, which is good in these upper divisions, and that's still a 28% increase over last year. 4A, we've got Hayden Catholic High Kansas, another 3rd-year winner, and you can see that dipped down a little bit last year, and now they're back to 74% completion. And Rose Hill High School in Rose Hill, Kansas, 55% completed, which is a 70% increase over 2020. And 4A is another tough category because we have a lot of our private schools are in this category as well. So some tough competition. 3A, Humboldt High School. Last year they were at 82%, now they're at 100%. So again, another back-to-back winner. And Atchison County Community Junior Senior High School in Effingham, 63 complete increase over 2020. So in 2A, we have Wichita County Junior Senior High School in Leoti. They are 85% completed this year, and Jefferson County North High School in Winchester, Kansas, 77% increase over last year. So really some good numbers there. And 1A, it's really a list of who gets 100% when you're this little. So we've got Axtell High School in Axtell, Kansas. We've got Kiowa County in Greensburg, 100%, 100%. We've got Tipton Catholic High School at 100%. So, and then our most improved FAFSA, look at that, 119% increase over last year. Again, 100% completed. Brewster. So Brewster actually got both categories on their award. They were most improved and highest. So, and then our virtual academies, and this favorite categories because these are the schools that sometimes do work with some of our at-risk students or our different populations of high school students, and yet they're still getting some great FAFSA completion done and helping students move on to post-secondary pathways. So Northeast Magnet School, again, third-year winner. You can see their percentages, and they tied with themselves last year, 63% completed. In the Wichita area. And then Kansas Connection Academy. This is one of our statewide virtual schools. They had 123 seniors last year, and they had a 75% increase over 2022. So congratulations to our winners this year. You can see the map, and I don't know, I'm kind of a goofball about maps, but I like to see where all of our winners are in the state. So you can see the stars are going to be our highest completers, and you're going to see the dots are going to be our most improved schools. So you can kind of see what that map looks like, because I want everyone to see that these aren't just in a certain part of the state. They are all over the state, and we're proud about that. And the last thing I want to show you is a picture of our FAFSA website. This is where all top 5 high schools are listed. We also have a list of the top 60%, any high school in the state that has over 60% of a FAFSA completion rate, there's 96 of them. So about a quarter of our high schools in the state are completing the FAFSA at 60% or more. And you can see that. So that's something we can track for all of our high schools as well. And with that, I'm going to say those are your FAFSA Challenge winners this year. Thank you very much.
Hey, and Tara, real quick, you've just brought great energy to these different initiatives, including the FAFSA completion. We're grateful for the energy and leadership and influence that you've garnered across the state to get this program going and growing with good momentum. And we'll miss you. Tara's getting closer to the students starting next week.
That's right.
And you've been a great just addition to the K-Board team. You are leaving the place better than you got there. So thank you for that, and we appreciate you.
It's been my honor to help you do your work here in Kansas, so thank you.
Thank you, Tara. All right. Carla, I believe you're going to be coming up to give us the request to offer a Bachelor of Science in Criminalistics at Fort Hays State.
Yes, Fort Hays State brought this proposal to the Council of Chief Academic Officers in June, and then a second reading in September. It was sent to COPS that same month. The Board of Academic Affairs looked at this on our Halloween meeting and requested some clarifications and wanted more information, and that is the highlighted information. Christy Dangermond does all the work on this, but she wanted to show that this is the added information since the Board of Academic Affairs looked at this. Any additional questions will probably need to go to Fort Hays State.
Yep, and I think Jill's going to handle those questions for us if we have conversation or questions. So, Regents, what questions or comments do you have for us? Regent Lane, do you want to give us just a little brief as what you guys talked about in Bass as you worked it through the committee?
I'd be glad to, Mr. Chair. So this item produced a lot of quality conversation that focused on program duplication and also mainly on program need. We had a couple of questions that we asked Fort Hays to address. As Dr. Wiscombe has noted, those questions are now highlighted for us here. A couple of things that I might share and then ask the other BASC members to jump in if you'd like. We wanted to be sure that the courses offered were in congruence with or consistent with our system-wide transfer courses. And we also wanted to more deeply understand the need for this program since we have other programs that have similar outcomes, forensic programs across the state. So those were the questions that we had, and thought it would be helpful to advance this to the full board to make sure that we're understanding your insights.
Thank you. Questions for Fort Hays State or conversation before we make any motions here?
So I have a question about the enrollment projections. Do you like the over or the under on those numbers?
Yeah, please come on up, Jill. Thank you.
Do I like the over or the under?
Right. Are you going to beat these numbers?
What's that?
Are you going to beat these numbers?
I think we'll meet the numbers, yeah. The original numbers in the proposal were actually lower. We raised them post our conversation with the Board Academic Affairs Standing Committee, and I believe we can meet these numbers. We have currently 163 students in our criminal justice major. I think Regent Mendoza asked a question during the BASC meeting about will it take from that major, and I think it will to some extent. The important thing that I want to point out for this major is currently we have students at Fort Hays that are pursuing this track, but for them to do that, they're having to get 2 majors, and that's 150 credit hours. This new Bachelor of Science in Criminalistics will allow them to do that same program in 120 hours. So I believe it will pull from the 163 majors that we have right now, but I think we can easily meet these and maybe exceed.
Thank you. Other questions?
Since I have the microphone, can I say one more thing?
You sure can.
Okay, when we talk about rural health care, we talk about our nurses in rural health care needing to be able to perhaps help deliver a baby, go put it in IV, and maybe clean up vomit down the hall in another room, down the hall in the rural hospital, which is probably the day in the life of many of our nurses and health professionals in rural Kansas. I liken this program and the things that our students in this program I liken that to things that these students might do in the field of law enforcement. So these students that come out of this program in criminalistics, they will be out in the field, they will be in the lab, and then they'll be in the courtroom. Because our rural law enforcement officers have to do multiple jobs and know multiple skills. And so this program will enable them to have those skills to be able to fill positions in western Kansas that are not being able to be filled right now. The other thing I want to point out is that our affiliation that you'll hear more about in a few minutes, Northwest Tech, has a crime scene investigation program. Those students will be able to matriculate right into this bachelor's degree program with that affiliation and articulation.
If you add bedwetting to your nurse thing, it sounds like another day at my house. My boys would be embarrassed if they knew I said that.
You're talking about your hospital. You're talking about your hospital.
My hospital stay. Yeah, thank you, Carl. All right. So I know BASC worked this really hard, which I appreciate them doing. Any other comments or questions before I hear whether there's a motion to approve?
I would ask Provost Arnsdorf if you would talk about how this is different from other forensics programs.
Sure. It's a little bit what I already discussed. The Wichita State program in particular, I want to highlight, it's a great program, and many of those students, of course I'm not at Wichita State, but many of those students are going into careers right into a lab versus the field. And so the students out of this program are going to be equipped to go into the field, into a lab, and then into the courtroom. So it's really a combination of all those skills, that knowledge and skill that we need in rural Kansas. Wichita State does have a connection with the ATF program. It's my understanding that the emphasis there is in the ballistics area. We're looking more at crime scene evidence, in addition to the lab setting, and then preparing evidence for the courtroom. So just a little bit broader program, more interdisciplinary.
Thank you very much.
Questions, comments, or a motion?
If there are no other questions, Mr. Chair, I would move for approval.
All right, we have a motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, passes. Thank you very much. All right, Elaine, you get to carry a lot of water here. We'll let you start off as we do our first read of the fiscal year 2025 housing and food service rates as proposed and submitted by the state universities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so according to board policy, November is the month when the board considers the state university's proposals for the subsequent academic year. This is regarding the housing and food service auxiliary units at the state universities. So according to board policy, these enterprises are distinct business units at the campuses, and they are supposed to be self-supporting. So we had a good discussion this morning with the CFOs about the financial standing of each of the business enterprises and how the universities are managing their cost controls with balancing the needs of the students and giving them an array of options. The issue paper that you have before you, starting on page 99 and carrying over to page 100, gives you a snapshot of a few of the more modest and then maybe the more up-to-date or the newer model of offerings. So it gives you a sense, if you wanted just to get a 30,000-foot view of what the universities are proposing. We also, though, of course, provide you the detailed information from each of the universities in the back with information explaining how the students had input in each of these campus processes. Last year, I would just show you at the bottom of page 100, we do publish the College Board trends in college pricing data just to give you some national context for comparable institutions and what they raised their rates this year. And we're looking somewhere between 3.2, 3.7, 4%. Last year, every one of those numbers was 3.0%, so a little bit higher. Clearly, food inflation, Mr. Chairman, you would be well aware of that, is attacking our universities. And they are also having to deal with some deferred maintenance at their housing units. So there aren't any questions. This is not for your action. This is just for your first read and your opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you. I know Fiscal Affairs not had a chance to review, but let's get questions or comments out there here on this first read if we can. You'll have had a chance to look at this. What thoughts or questions, comments do you have?
Mr. Chair, I will just emphasize a point that Elaine just made, that to a T, each one of the institutions, when they were discussing how they arrived at the numbers that they are proposing, each one mentioned that they had extensively engaged the students in those conversations. So I don't want that to be lost, that the students were a big part of putting these numbers together.
Thank you, Regent Benson. Other questions or comments on the first round here?
So I'm certain you all spent a lot of time discussing this, but as opposed to thinking about the percentage increases, I mean, I know the teams all work together really well. If we compare the absolute rates across the institutions, are we comfortable how they compare to each other? If we think about the student population, the locations we are, and so forth, have you all talked about that at all?
Not necessarily, no, not as it relates to the percentage increase.
Well, again, I'd like to step back from the percentage because everybody starts in a little different place. So I mean, I may just be one person, but I think it might be helpful with the second read if we do a little comparison on, I shouldn't say little, we do a comparison of that. And then I also would be interested, last year the group discussed, we didn't want to be prescriptive because we know that everybody has their own contracts, but that we would continue to explore leverage of consolidating some of our buys. Yep. So any work you've done on all of that, I'd be curious to hear about as well, either now or at the next meeting.
So there's been on for a while.
Okay.
Any
I've never seen
response?
the CFO so quiet, so. Okay, that's fine. Next time.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Regent Lane.
You know, I don't know if I have a question that's just circling in my head and wondering, where's the tipping point? We have to cover costs, but where's the tipping point where we truly are getting out of bounds of what's affordable for Kansas families? And so I don't know, Elaine, if there's any guidance on how we might think about that. But
certainly, Regent Lane, we can gather information for you on how this is impacting our take-up rate of on-campus housing. I know University of Kansas would tell you, and I think Wichita State as well comes to mind, that they, and of course K-State Salina, they have more than enough demand for their on-campus housing. So they see themselves as well positioned in their pricing model. each campus, when they look at their pricing, they do study the local market. So what is available and how it's priced in Manhattan versus Hayes versus Wichita and Lawrence, Pittsburgh, they could be quite different positions. And the housing stock at each of the campuses is a little bit different too. Wichita State has perhaps more newer facilities and doesn't have as much deferred maintenance, where other campuses might have older stock that needs a little bit more care and attention.
If you could provide us any information, then I know that some of that detail is in each of the campus's proposals, but helping us look at understanding what that regional area is demanding and how we are comparing to that.
Okay.
But just overall, one of our goals is affordability, and everybody's costs are going up. But I know this may mean that some students cannot engage in pursuing their higher ed because it's just between tuition increases and these increases, it just becomes out of balance. So anything that you could give us that would shine a light on how we're doing in comparison to what they would be paying in any market would be helpful.
We'll see what we can gather for you. And of course, it's well documented in the higher ed world that students who do live on campus seem to do better academically. They retain and they go on to graduate at better rates. So we do want to encourage that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just so we sure hit the mark, we'll look at the average Kansas family wage.
I don't think your mic's on.
Yeah, we'll look at the average Kansas family wage, look at how these rates, what percentage that would be for an average Kansas family. And we'll look at then how many residents are in how many Kansas residents percentage-wise are in the resident hall versus out of state. That'd be, that might be an indicator. And provide that to you as well. And would there be any other indicators you want?
No, I think that would be most helpful as we think about that issue. So thank you for that.
Also, I want to point out that some of the universities which keeping student success in mind are bringing back students and enforcing the first year students stay on campus. So just wanted to point that out as well.
Please do, Chancellor.
Yeah, I think it's also, you have to be careful, I think, about looking at that first page, which is an average, right? Or it's a sampling of one type of housing. And in our case, it ranges from $2,600 for a year to $13,000. And so, to your point of people have options of figuring out what price point they are comfortable with and the environment in which they want to live. And I think it's important to have that diversity of options for our students. And they are attracted to what works for them.
Right.
And so trying to keep that diversity, I think, is at least for us, very important.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chancellor. Good point.
Chair Rolfe,
Yes, please.
if I may. I was interested in occupancy rates. I was curious what each university, like I'm sure some have debt service, maybe some don't, but what is the actual break even? What do you need in occupancy to meet expenses? Because it looks like occupancy varies quite a bit.
We can get you that information.
Okay. So I think what we heard is Elaine's going to gather that information for the second read. So just make sure. Yes.
I might say, as a member of Fiscal Affairs, I think, Mr. Chair, this topic was the one that took the most time and attention to us, and we talked about a number of these different items. But in particular, I'd like the board to note that the percentage increases that we're seeing requested are significantly below the average inflation rate. So there's evidence there that those folks on all our campuses who are responsible for setting these prices have done an outstanding job of holding the line on these costs. In a time of inflation, often you can see people sort of tagging along and wanting to increase their rates as high as they can, kind of hiding behind inflationary amounts. There was no evidence of that to us. In fact, the evidence was somewhat to the contrary. They're taking down their balances, their reserves, in order to hold the line as much as they possibly can. So I personally was impressed with all the campus's efforts to come in significantly under inflation, and in doing so, remember our focus of students, students, students.
Thank you, Regent Winter. Anybody else? All right. I appreciate the interest, and obviously super important part of our role here. So, Elaine, I think you've got a good list of information that we want for the next reading. Okay.
We will gather that.
All right. Let's move on to the request for changes to appropriation language for the fiscal year 2025 budget.
Thank you. So this item is a request for approval and starts on page 127. It's a series of 6 items for you to consider. This is getting way into the weeds of our budget. And part of what really is important, it isn't only just the dollar amount that we are able to receive from the legislature, but there's also frequently a verbiage attached to the appropriation that then drives how we must administer those dollars. And so we are seeking a continuation of several items, and the first one relates to members of certain Native American tribal nations, giving them the second year of opportunity to pay for at the resident rate, even though they may come from another state, but they are a member of a tribal nation that is either located in Kansas or has a historical connection to Kansas. And the language that you see there at the bottom of page 127 and the very top of 128 has been developed with great assistance from Dr. Redcorn at Kansas State University, as well as other members of the Kansas Association for Native American Education. The second item is, again, a continuation of our request that the legislature appropriate our state funding for their state financial aid programs on a biennial basis. So we already have most of our funding appropriated to us for next year. They did that last session at our request. Now we're saying we love that because then we can notify schools as to how much we have available for them to then award students starting now. And so we see that as a big advantage. The timeline for when the legislature works their budget and when awards would ideally be made to students doesn't really match up very well. So we're trying to get around that with this request. The next option, the next item relates to the tiered and non-tiered funding. Last year, the legislature applied a very specific proviso that set the dollar amounts to each school in the language of the appropriation bill itself. Our suggestion is that language be removed and we revert back to language that simply says the Board of Regents and the Tech Ed Authority, you have responsibility for administering the cost model. Please do that in accordance with our current procedure, which would be finally next year full recentering of tiered and non-tiered funding using that 3-year average that we've been talking about for a year or two. The next item relates to also funding for tier schools. We received 3 different pots of funding for career and technical education capital outlay, and they each had different rules for matching and how the amounts are calculated. We're simply requesting, can we have a unified approach to those dollar amounts? The next item, starting at the top of page 130, number 5, relates to our Hero Scholarship. Again, this is a program created by the legislature that we administer. The funding for the program is actually higher that we have, but there's a statutory cap that limits how much we're supposed to spend for the program. So we're saying, could you please allow us to reimburse the schools that have students who are eligible for the Hero Scholarship, allow us to reimburse the schools with the amount of funding that we have. And then lastly, the newest item is in number 6. Since the year 2000, the state has been in a partnership for matching private donations for the interest earnings for certified gifts. And this is for the entirety of our system. And you can see the institutions that have received gifts there at the bottom of page 130, which does include Washburn University and several community colleges. We have now reached a point where our cumulative certified gifts, matched up with the higher interest rates, now have get us up to where we're at the just right under hitting the statutory cap for what the match will get us. And we're saying, please suspend that $8 million cap and let us, while the legislature considers the board's research initiative that Adam's going to talk to you about later this afternoon, at least for the current year and next year, please just let us suspend that cap and you match the earnings that we would have for our gifts. And those are the items I have for the appropriation language.
Thank you. Questions for Elaine on any of those items? Seem well thought out. We do need a motion so we can send this on and work it not only through the budget office, the governor, and the legislature, I think is where it all goes from here. So,
I'll move.
all right, I hear a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, move said, man, we got from the right to the left, from the left to the right. Here we go. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Good job, Elaine.
All right.
Let's move on.
Next three items actually relate to the University of Kansas. The first one, item 3 in the middle of page 131, is the specific non-resident tuition rate for students attending KU in their School of Pharmacy. Nationally, our pharmacy schools are facing a decline in applications, and as KU has surveyed what other rates are, they have found that their non-resident rate at $1,037.90 credit hour is higher than what the market really seems to be bearing. So they want to reduce that by about 37% to $655, trying to spur more enrollments. And of course, they're asking for these items off cycle to do marketing and promotion to students for next year.
All right. Do I have any questions about these or comments? Pretty straightforward.
I would have asked the question as to why off cycle, but Elaine answered that. I think every time we can stay off cycle, on cycle, that's helpful. But I understand the need for now.
Okay. We need to vote on that one. Can we vote on all three at the same time, or do we vote on them separately? Do you guys bundle them? Okay.
I move to bundle all three of them and approve them.
All right. I got a motion to approve.
I would second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. Great job.
All right. Advancing then to number 6, if I'm understanding correctly. Page 133. This is something that does affect the entirety of our system. And I know Regent Benson will be recusing himself from this item. This is a policy change, and I first want to express my gratitude to Jolene Miller, who helped draft all of this for us. In your previous recent years, you have taken specific action in your tuition proposals that you've received from universities on some, I'm going to call them one-offs, for approving benefits for certain employee groups at different campuses. So this policy change is to make an option for the universities then to unify the policy and keep it up with what we're doing in practice. And this allows each university to determine for their benefits eligible staff who could be eligible for an employee or their spouse or their dependent who could obtain some tuition assistance to attend the university. This would be voluntary, not required.
Questions for Elaine?
And Mr. Chair, just for clarification, it's because my wife is employed by Pittsburgh State that I asked to recuse myself.
Yeah.
Thanks for being careful.
Yep. Thank you.
So makes sense that it's voluntary so people have the chance to their flexibility, but I would be curious how much we think we'd take advantage of this at the various institutions.
Regent Ice, I do have that information, not with me at the moment, but
okay.
I can get you that.
I'd love to see it.
Okay.
I mean, the record would show I've long been supportive of being as forceful on this as we can be. This is what we do, so we ought to be able to do it at a good cost with our folks having benefits. So,
We'll get you that.
Thank you. And you'll kick that to the whole board. I think we'd all be interested. Thank you.
I thought it was going to be special.
You are special, Hall of Famer. Other questions or comments on this? All right, I recognize Regent Benson will be sitting this vote out. Is there a motion to approve this?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for approval.
Thank you, Dr. Lane. Do I have a second?
I would like to second it.
All right, I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Chad Bristow. Come on up.
Thank you, Chair Ralph. A very important fiscal affairs and discussion item, number 7, is on page 136. And as was mentioned earlier in the report, this is a request from the University of Kansas Medical Center to approve the program statement for the Cancer Center Research Building. And I just want to note that this project was previously approved by the board via amendment earlier this year in April. And it was, of course, a part of the 5-year capital plan, the fiscal year 25 capital plan. And what we have today is the program statement that features a project that's budgeted at $250 million for approximately 212,000 square feet of university research space. Another important note here is that the project is being planned in close coordination and partnership with the University of Kansas Health System, who's developing their plans for the clinical patient care infrastructure. Pending approval of this program, the Medical Center will continue with completion of the design of their university research side of this project. Happy to address any questions or defer to Chancellor Girard or Dr. Smart.
Questions or comments? All right. I'll make a motion to approve this one.
You should.
Recently benefiting from some of this work. Yes, Regent Winter?
I'm glad to second it. And by the way, I might add, I myself, cancer survivor, having been treated by the University of Kansas Health System. So I don't know if I have a conflict, but I'm going to vote yes anyway.
All right, I've heard a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Thank you guys again for your great work. Let's keep going. Chad, you got the comm, my friend.
Okay, item number 8, also on page 136, is a request from Kansas State University to amend their FY 2024 capital projects plan, approve the program statement, and seek legislative bonding authority for a new residence hall and dining facility at the Aerospace and Technology Campus in Salina. Again, this project has been previously approved as part of the fiscal year 25 capital plan. It was slated for out years. It is being moved up to current years and would essentially be completed over the next 3 years. It's a 55,000 gross square feet residence hall that would house up to 267 students. And it would also feature a 12,500 square foot dining hall. And the estimated project budget is $39,225,000 approximately. This would be the 4th residence hall on the Salina campus.
Questions for Chad or President Linton? All right, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
I hear a motion.
I'll second it.
And a second. Right side, strong side. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, great. It's good that we got demand. So that's great. All right, let's go to number 9.
Okay, continuing that theme then, item number 9 on pages 136 and 137 is a request from K-State to amend their capital projects plan, fiscal year 2024, approve the program statement and seek legislative bonding authority for the renovation of the Strong Complex, which is essentially 3 residence halls, Van Zyl, Boyd Hall, and Putnam Hall. This would modernize room layouts and replace building systems in these buildings.
All right. Questions for Chad or President Linton on this one? Okay, hearing none. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
All right, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Thank you, Chad. Now I'd like to welcome to the podium Chancellor Gerard. We'll talk about the request to amend the fiscal year 2024 capital improvement request and approve revised program statement for the 11th and Mississippi Gateway project.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to be here to talk about this project. This is actually a form of this project, I think, has probably been on a program statement for a decade. Probably should have been on it for 2 decades. When we brought that forward previously, we have significantly changed what this project is. As we've talked about here, it's gone from a football facilities project, really a mixed-use development project to include a 55,000 square foot conference center in it. So we've redesigned the project around that, got more current pricing, which of course in the current state of environment of increasing costs for just about everything, significantly increased the cost for this project. So while we originally projected it at around $335 million, it currently is priced now at about $448 million. And again, we are not using any state general funds or tuition dollars for this project. It's a combination of some state dollars that were invested economic development wise, but really philanthropic, and then there'll be a little bit of financing coming from the athletics department. But we would like to move forward with this project.
Okay. Questions for the Chancellor? Or comments? No, this was talked about in fiscal.
Thought maybe the economist at the end of the table would have a comment.
I think he's wanted to make a motion.
No, I'm going to, I think this is on. Yeah, I'm going to abstain due to the serving on the KU Endowment Executive Committee that is involved in the project.
Okay.
That's all I was going to say.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'd be glad to make a motion.
Yeah. Regional Lane makes a motion.
I'd be glad to make the motion.
I will second it.
And a seconded. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Godspeed.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Counselor John Uri. Request to approve bonding authority. This might have something to do with our last one.
It very much does. So in connection with that last one, there's a request by the University of Kansas and Kansas Athletics Incorporated to approve bond financing or bonds to be issued in an amount not to exceed $115 million to partially fund improvements to the stadium, and also $31 million, well, for the wider project, not just the stadium now, and then also $31,500,000 to refinance some existing Kansas Athletics Incorporated debt by prepaying senior notes to eliminate certain covenants and restrictions associated with that portion of the financing or that existing financing. So the Kansas Development Finance Authority has the authority to issue those bonds, has the role of doing that for the state. And after consulting with the Finance Authority, Kansas Athletics Incorporated proposed to have KDFA issue debt obligations in an aggregate principal amount sufficient to finance expenditures for the cost of the project. Like I said, for this portion, it's the new debt, it's a not to exceed amount of $150 million, plus any additional amounts required to finance the cost of issuance, cost of interest on the bonds during the construction of the project, credit enhancement cost, and any required reserves for the payment of the principal and interest on the bonds. Depending on the bond market, then, should say that these wouldn't be issued, they're not anticipated to be issued until 2025, and that's after other mechanisms of financing are utilized. They're asking for approval to do that now so they can start working with KDFA towards that end. And then also, depending on market conditions at the time, the University of KU would like to possibly enter into an agreement to backstop the security on that by pledging university funds. The initial pledge is intended to be, I believe, Kansas Athletic Incorporated funds, which are thought sufficient to cover it, but they might get better terms if they get that additional pledge of university funds. That'll be an assessment to be made in the future if you all approve.
Are you saying we'd need to approve that part again, or you're saying if we approve it today, they have that flexibility?
I'm saying the latter. If you approve it today, they'd have that flexibility.
Is that everything, John?
That, I think, covers everything.
Okay. Again, I know you guys looked at it in fiscal. Questions or comments? Is there a time machine available? We go back in time just 2 years earlier to issue those bonds? Okay. Good old time machine joke. All right. Anybody questions or comments on this? There are 2 rate cuts forecasted in third quarter next year, so might get better. Yeah. All right. Hearing
Mr.
no.
Chair, I would move for approval.
Thank you, Regent Benson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Regent Winter. And do I have another abstention? Yes, Regent Dykes. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. Now we've approved the project, giving you a way to pay for it. There we go, 2 for 1. All right. John, while you're up there, you want to talk about the financing for the stadium project at WSU?
Yes, thank you. So next item starts on page 141 of your materials. The Board of Trustees of Wichita State University requests that the Board of Regents approve Kansas Development Finance Authority's issuance of bonds on behalf of the Board of Trustees to finance certain costs of construction and renovation related to the university stadium project located on state property of Wichita State University. The Board of Trustees proposes to request that KDFA issues bonds to finance the project, or a portion of the project, in the principal amount not to exceed $11,800,000 plus cost of issuance and reserves, and the debt, or cost and reserves. The debt will be secured by a pledge of proceeds from the special tax levy, and the board staff recommends approving this project. That's a $78 million project, and I believe phase 1 and phase 2 start first. And
Questions for President Muma, for John?
I have a question on, do we work with one agency to provide bonds across different universities, or universities are working differently with different agencies? Because like KU's example, if you work together, you get a better bond pricing. How does that work?
so typically, bonds are financed on a project-by-project basis for an issuer. So if someone is interested in seeking bond financing, if a university is interested in seeking bond financing for a project, they'd reach out to the Kansas Development Finance Authority primarily. That's the mechanism the state utilizes to be the issuer of bonds, as opposed to some other mechanisms. And there is some coordination sometimes. I know KDFA looks at opportunities. It can depend on timing, but I think typically bond issuances are specific normally, at least in the initial issuance of the debt, to projects with a source of funding tied to that project.
Other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, John, you still got the podium, my friend. Keep
All
on
right,
rolling.
last one, last legislative session, and this, materials for this start on page 153 of your materials. Last session, the legislature passed a law with a directive for us for the board to take some action. And there's a proposed policy that appears on page 144 that is meant to bring us into compliance with that directive in that law last year. So I can try to answer any questions about that if needed.
Okay, any questions for John? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motioned and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, President Mason. This is an exciting one. We're gonna get the whole gang. I love it.
It's my pleasure to bring you an update and a quick review on the affiliation project. Of course, I have my esteemed colleagues, President Burks and President Shears here as well. So our affiliation started with our common mission to serve rural students, businesses, and communities. That is our magnetic north. We continue to talk about this. This is not an enrollment grab. This is all about serving rural communities, businesses, and students. So we come together in a very strong partnership, not driven by institutional survival strategy, but exactly the opposite. Uniting together as a force for good. I have a brief video for you. Without volume.
Stop motion. Take two. The video looks a lot like our meeting. Are you guys able to play? Oh, here we go.
And growing threats to our shared future. Rural Kansas has long been home to strong, hard-working people and tight-knit communities. Yet, like much of rural America, we face severe and growing threats to our shared future. We simply must address an ongoing exodus of talented professionals if we are to bring prosperity back to our hometowns.
Fort Hays State University, NCK Tech, and Northwest Tech want to be part of the solution. We formed a new affiliation, a strategic partnership that will deliver the future-focused educational programs and services that will keep our people and our businesses in rural Kansas.
Working together, our three institutions will provide stronger, more accessible programs and services that take maximum advantage of our resources, locations, and relationships. We will break down artificial bureaucratic barriers that limit educational opportunities. And working together, we will offer the best value in education anywhere.
You see schools come together often when they're struggling, and that's not the case here. We're excited about the fact that we're all three strong.
The goal of this partnership is simple and straightforward: to create opportunities for success for the students and communities we serve. This is the North Star that will guide all of our efforts.
As the affiliation begins to gain momentum, you get a chance to see students engaged in experiential learning opportunities that honestly exist beyond the classroom and position them for productive and rewarding lives. You get a chance to see local employers that are engaged in playing major roles in the development of programs and services that really contribute into the workforce development and the enduring vitality of our hometowns on the high plains of western Kansas.
So my job is to talk a little bit about the why and the why now. So you can see obviously on the PowerPoint, but I love to give a little bit of just context, right? Each of us have a responsibility as the presidents of our organizations to do what we can to secure the long-term future and success of each of our institutions. When we look across the service area that Northwest Tech has, we've got 17 counties that we serve in our region. If you look back at the historical populations, the height of those populations was about the 1970s. So for the last 50 years in rural Kansas, we've been seeing population trends declining down. Kind of the complexity of that when we look at the high school students, most of our students, our bread and butter students, come within about a 100-mile radius of Northwest Tech. When we look at the 17 counties in my region, and we look at it's about 24 school districts out there, if you look back 30 years ago to today, we have 1,000 less K-12 students in just those 17 counties than we did 30 years ago. That's a significant concern. We know population change is happening, so we have a choice. We can either continue to do what we've always done, or we can try to reform, we can try to think differently and try something that's a little bit unique. Specifically in our case, it's focused on rural Kansas, and particularly northwest and north central Kansas. And so you can see a few things on there. We're really looking, again, to kind of capture those college-bound students, help support our business and industry partners, and really try to secure and create what we would call stickiness within the region. So the number of students that we have that we're working with at Northwest Tech, North Central Tech, and at Fort Hays, trying to connect them into a broader employment pool, create stickiness that keeps them in the region and in western Kansas.
My name is Eric Burks, President at NCK Tech. And before I move on to the slide, I just don't want to be remiss and forget to do this later. The three of us get to stand up here and we're asking for approval of the affiliation document and all that. There was a lot of work from a lot of individuals that went into this, and I certainly want to recognize, in particular, Joe Bain and Steve Kearney, who both were very instrumental in helping us through that, as well as all the people back on our campuses that provided input to help us get to this point. So just didn't want to leave them out if I didn't want to leave them out, let's just put it that way. So you might recognize, and we talked about the North Star for what we're really trying to, who's going to benefit from this? And we're wanting our students, obviously, as mentioned earlier, Regent Winters talked about students, and that's really the focus, is how do we provide more opportunities, provide more credentialing, transferability, all those opportunities that we want to, instead of competing for students, create more pathways for students to go between our institutions, and anything from a CDL, CNA licensure all the way up to a master's or doctorate degree, and really providing that for our students. Forging strong partnerships with our business and industry. We feel like we do that already, but we feel like this gives us a better opportunity. And we're seeing that already in the businesses that are reaching out to us and asking us. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow to talk to businesses about how we can better serve them in our area. And we also want to help support our local communities. You think about succession planning, you think about the things that it takes to run communities and keep our communities viable. And we've got to be part of that solution. And so that's really the focus. If you look at this, students, business, and communities, and if you remember back a few presentations earlier in this meeting, we talked about building a future together. Those align very much with the strategic plan of the Board of Regents.
So the affiliation is based on the fact that the demographics in western Kansas and central Kansas are changing, and I'm on the wrong page. But we all know that. And similar to the Wichita State University affiliation, and in alignment with the model that is laid out in the MOU and the legislation that was approved in January, the basic structure is a governance transfer from the local tech college boards to Fort Hays State University, with all three institutions maintaining their separate funding streams, their higher learning commission accreditations, their federal EIN numbers, and their Department of Education numbers.
So the timeline here, and you were all part of this, you might remember that in January this was presented to the board in the form of draft legislation. Of course, it went through the legislature nearly unanimously and was signed by the governor into law. We've had, in the meantime, over the summer and really prior to that, we had affiliation implementation teams, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth about here in a second, but folks back on our campus that are really going to make this happen, already starting to figure out. And one of the things that I like to talk about is, you know, my wife was crazy enough to marry me 27 years ago, and when we stood at the altar and she said, "I do," and I said, "I do," we had no idea what that would evolve to in 27 years. And I'm really excited about all the outcomes that we talked about earlier, but what's this going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years as we really get to know each other better and understand the things that we can do together. So we're excited about that. And really the next stages, we need your approval today, and from that approval, then we will submit a change of control request from the Higher Learning Commission. Once that is given, then they give us 30 days to sign that in or basically ratify in case there's any changes that they might make or whatever that goes back to all of our boards to make sure that we're still good with it. And then we're going to plan to implement in this coming fall of 2024. So pretty aggressive timeline, but we've really been excited about the buy-in, and everyone on our campus is really just helping make this happen.
So as Eric said just a moment ago too, with the buy-in on the local campuses, that's been significant. I would also say the same thing happens within our communities. And so we've been really excited, I think, across all three communities and across the region, kind of the feedback we've got, the input we've gotten back, the business and industry partners that have reached out, the community members that have reached out. At times it was almost overwhelming, so it's been kind of exciting to see. We talk a little bit in this slide about identity change, right? And that's always one of the biggest, hardest things to do. And so this is one of the big changes that's coming. And so in this case, from a naming convention side of things, I do want to qualify this is pending Higher Learning Commission approval next summer. But right now, Northwest Tech on our side of things will be Fort Hays Tech Northwest, and then North Central Tech will become Fort Hays State North Central. And so the work that we have ahead of us is trying to also work to differentiate the two of us enough that we have a distinct visibility within our geographic region. The colors will change, so we'll go to match Fort Hays State's color scheme with the gold and black, and we will become tigers. And so for those of you who have any familiarity with the Goodland area, you know the local colors are gold and black, so the community is very excited about this. It's been the #1 request I've had in the last 8 years. Why don't you just change from red and black to gold and black? Finally got it done.
And there is, you know, as we've led our campuses and communities through this, there is a sense of loss at times, and probably the biggest pain point has been giving up being the Trailblazers, and I assume the Mavericks as well. And you know, when I've been asked about that, I'm an old football coach, and I think that you know, it's important in a football team. You've got the offense, the defense, and the special teams. And when they take the field, whether that's the Kansas City Chiefs, the Fort Hays Tigers, whoever, they take the field together in the same uniform, even though they all serve a distinct function in how they help contribute to the success of the team. And so that's how we're trying to approach this as well. We need to make sure that we're removing all sense of competition. We need the people at all of our campuses to understand we're on the same team, we're all working towards the same goal. So that's the necessity of why we would do that, but there is that challenge, as Ben mentioned, about making sure that we remain distinct and present in the marketplace.
So we've been really strategic about the implementation process, ensuring that it's very incremental. It's driven at the grassroots level by subject matter experts and focused on really crucial workforce priorities. And we're going to share with you some of our beginning steps.
So now we start looking at kind of when the rubber meets the road. We start talking about, as the affiliation begins to take shape, beginning to build these pathways across the three institutions. The biggest key of this, you know, the three of us can sit in a room, and we've sat in plenty of rooms over the last year and a half or so working through, you know, what this looks like. But really the folks that make the magic happen are our faculty, staff, and industry partners that we work with. And so these affiliation implementation teams, or we affectionately call them AITs, we have several of these already stood up across the affiliation as we begin work and the heavy lifting that goes into this. So one of those on the top there is construction. We really focused early on here on three major ones: construction, healthcare, and ag. Because certainly across the state, and certainly in our region, we need more construction to be happening. We certainly have a significant need for access with healthcare and healthcare workers in our region. And certainly in Western Kansas, ag is king. And so we tried to really focus on those three. We have about 6 more, I think, coming on board that we're going to be looking towards over the course of this next year. But the thing I really want you to take away from when we look at this particular slide, whether it be construction or nursing, we have faculty across all three institutions in the room at the same time talking about individual course levels, or individual courses rather, as we start looking at how students matriculate through the partners. But more importantly, we have industry partners at the table for every one of the AITs. Because the reality is we can produce really great students, but if they don't have really good industry partners to go to when they graduate, it's for nothing. And so they're involved in that, engaged in that process with us, kind of helping to shape what those curriculum opportunities look like. And we hope long-term, right, that they're also employers for the students that are coming out of the affiliation initiatives.
So besides serving students through the academic programs that we offer, obviously there's administrative things that we're doing behind the scenes as well, obviously to benefit students, but also to benefit our communities and businesses, to try to recognize efficiencies. The first one that you see is our accreditation. AIT, which is really about getting the HLC change of request through. So our ALOs have been working, our liaisons have been working together to craft that document. It's very unique because it represents all three institutions, and we all still have to prove and provide evidence that we're in compliance, which we have been individually, but we have to show how we're going to continue to be in compliance moving forward. This is actually the only AIT that does not have industry, someone from the outside as part of this. And so, as you can understand, it's kind of a unique document. It has its challenges enough trying to work the three together without adding that component. But otherwise, we have an IT study group. Of course, our institutions need to be able to talk to one another. Again, we talk about getting to know one another, and we probably assumed that we would have some level of similarity in our IT functions. I don't think that we found any yet. So we've got some work to do there to make, we've got an Apple school. I think we are at least both more Windows-based, but other than that, there's just not a lot of similarities. So continuing to work at how are we going to share those information across our campuses and using the technology the best we can. So it's great to sit our IT folks down together and have those conversations. And then obviously recruiting and marketing, that's going to be the first thing when we're starting in the fall. How are we going to market to students? How are we going to help them understand what we're offering them? What's the same? What's enhanced? And all of those things. So those are committees that have been working since this summer and really before, and obviously some urgency behind what they're doing. But we have several others that we're standing up as well. And again, I think this is the last slide that I get to speak on, so I do want to make one other comment, just in expression of gratitude. A lot of people have asked, how have you pulled this off and all this, and really, I couldn't do it without the two people behind me, and I know that sounds a little duh, you couldn't collaborate if you didn't have other people, but Dr. Mason, Tisa, is so great to work with, and so has Ben, and really it's the personalities and us coming together. There have been times when we've disagreed, but we've never disagreed on our commitment to those three North Stars of students, businesses, and communities. And whenever we came to little friction points or whatever, we were able to go back to that and say, hey, how are we going to better serve, and how are we going to make sure that we're being respectful of each other and the unique cultures that we all bring to that, and yet forge that together. So I just would be remiss if I didn't thank Ben and Tisa for the great work that they've invested in. Appreciate working with you. Look forward to more of it.
So we have phase 2 here coming on board. We're in the middle of charging. Again, these committees, they all have charters. I'll talk about that in a second as we wrap this up. We will continue to roll out on an ongoing basis affiliation implementation teams. And in my heart and mind, this work never ends. We're constantly engaging with each other and with industry, because industry is going to continue to evolve and change, especially in this world of AI. So, while our steering committee and affiliation teams have been focused on design and implementation work, the governance committee, the three of us, along with Joe Bain, has been working to ensure the alignment with the Kansas Board of Regents principles and guidelines for institutional affiliations with state universities. That has also required us to get third-party validation. So a really big thank you to President Utash and President Muma for helping us get through that process and doing that work. We've also drafted an affiliation agreement detailing the governance structured as outlined in the MOU and set forth in HB 2290. Both the Northwest and the North Central Tech boards have unanimously approved the proposed agreement. Again, they've been extraordinary partners. I also want to acknowledge the collaborative work among our dream team attorneys, John Yeary, Joe Bain, and Steve Carney, as well as the incredible partnership with Presidents Burks, Shears, our boards, and our extremely talented faculty, staff, and leadership teams. So today, we seek your approval of the affiliation agreement and to authorize the board chair to execute the affiliation agreement following the approval of the Higher Learning Commission.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation. the way I want to take this is I'm going to go ahead and just make a motion to approve this, get a second, and then we'll have discussion on it. But I just want to highlight again, as I did in the governance committee report and in that committee, as you guys can see, this is a great example of Kansans working together for the higher calling and the higher ideal, and remembering what we're all about in this room and what we're working on, as we've heard over and over again. Students, students, students. Your commitment to Western Kansas and the way you've been able to work through this and lead your teams is just a great example of what I love about this state. So thank you guys for your leadership. So I'll make the motion to approve this. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. What discussion or comments does anybody on the board want to make?
I just want to add that this is phenomenal, and very proud to see all three of you represented and taking examples from Wichita State Tech and Wichita State Universities. This is fantastic, and I can see, I saw the computer sciences academic statue there, and then emphasis on agriculture. There's a lot of ag tech opportunities, so improving that. And I see a flyer here working with SBDC. Good job on culminating all of that, so good luck.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Chair Rolfe?
Yes.
If I may. This is a question for President Shears. Could you address how this affiliation will affect your athletic teams at Northwest Tech?
Yes,
and that affiliation?
Great question. So we will still be an NJCAA institution, so we'll still have our collegiate athletics. And so our students, our coaches will still go out in the highways and byways and recruit students and bring them into Northwest Tech, but on the rest of the affiliation piece of things, unchanged. So it'll remain status quo in that regard, outside of a significant amount of jersey and warm-up requirements that will need to change. So
You're
yes.
going to change colors, apparently.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
I also want to add between Apple and Windows. I am biased towards Apple, so longevity.
Region winner.
Well, and I'm biased toward cooperation and self-sacrifice. And I think I was talking to somebody the other day about this being on the agenda, and the question was, well, was it a carrot or a stick? Did you force them to do it, or did you pay them to do it? And I said, you wouldn't believe this. They figured this out themselves. So altruism is abounding among the three of you. And I can't tell you how excited I am to see how this has developed. It is about students, students, students. So I compliment you all for your leadership, for your courage, for your vision. And I did happen to note that the two, your names of your two schools, Mavericks and Trailblazers. So you have to have a little bit of Maverick in you to have the guts to do what you're doing, and you certainly are Trailblazers in how you're doing it. So thank you.
Thanks, Region winner. President Mason.
I just also say that their local advisory boards also had much courage to go down this path.
Any other questions or comments before we vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Unanimous. President Shears, President Burks, President Mason, congratulations. Good work. All right, next up, new to the team, Adam York.
Good afternoon, Regents. I'm Adam York. Thank you for the warm welcome and introduction today. Wanted to go briefly into a legislative update and then turn right over to advance some non-budgetary legislative proposals that the system has been working on over the past few weeks since the last legislative session earlier this spring. But first, let me start off with the legislative update and the interim session that we've been working through this fall. There have been several committees, special committees, providing a snapshot of what is to come in the 2024 session, including a special committee on education, which President Flanders and others testified at, looking at K-12 education, special education, and post-secondary education. Additionally, there was a Legislative Compensation Commission. This was set up by the legislature, comprised of private citizens appointed by the governor and legislative leadership, looking at the compensation rates of our current Kansas legislature. Currently, that's set at about $23,000 base salary. The commission did recommend about a doubling of that to $43,000, in line with neighboring states, and certainly striking a balance between working towards a reimbursable citizen legislature, but striking a balance of how not to incent professional politicians. So part of that is a recommendation from the commission about how non-legislative state boards and other committees are pegged to legislative pay and statute. So the commission did provide for an opportunity to continue to study that. Moving on, for a look ahead, Kansas is projected to have an ending balance of $3.5 billion for fiscal year 25 in the coffers. This is just a first look ahead for fiscal year 2025, and it could change, but that leads into the next discussion of priorities for the legislature, and certainly tax cuts, or should I say income tax cuts, are on the minds of the House and Senate majorities. And the governor's priorities, certainly I think from this fall, remains Medicaid expansion. So with that, we'll turn over to non-budgetary legislative proposals.
Hold on, let me see if there's any questions so far. Comments? Okay, sounds pretty accurate to me so far. Go ahead. Did they consider us getting a pay raise and all that too?
That would be in the consideration for further study for.
Is it really? I thought it was a joke, sorry.
No, non-budgetary.
I like your leadership.
Yeah, thank you. All right, go ahead.
So the first item in the non-budgetary legislative proposals and Regents, I will note that there are two items here that do not have draft language yet, but they will be provided in the December board packet for final action as we continue to take stakeholder feedback and develop some of these concepts, but they will be reflective of the two concepts here without draft language. So the first one being that the Kansas Strategic Research Fund, if you'll recall from the September budget meeting, this was an item that was moved from the Unified Appropriations Budget Request into non-budgetary proposals here today. It would essentially be a $10 million state general fund appropriations over 10 years with a 1-to-1 university match, looking at high economic impact areas designated by the state of Kansas. Those areas would include advanced manufacturing, aerospace and defense, logistics, food and ag, and importantly, water infrastructure, as well as medical. Philosophy would certainly follow the University Engineering Initiative Act, first passed by the legislature in 2012 and reauthorized in the 2022 session. Moving on to item number 2, a technical edit to the Accelerating Opportunity Kansas to Work statute. This was a program created in 2019, really to pair the adult education delivery of career and technical education, as well as basic skills instructions with career pathways for adult learners. The 2023 legislature added a provision there to add a $500 stipend for books and materials and other items, but currently the way that provision is written, AOK GED students are currently precluded, and to our knowledge, no one is currently receiving the benefit. So we'd be seeking a fix from the legislature to actually allow that benefit to go to students.
Right.
Item number 3 is to explore a statewide initiative to provide more healthcare professions and providers within the state and address workforce shortages based on recommendations from the system. This would specifically look at the Nursing Services Scholarship Program, looking at ways to remove barriers to that scholarship program, one of which being removing the requirement to obtain a sponsorship early in for a student looking to pursue a career in nursing. To make that decision early into their collegiate career may be a bit daunting, so looking to remove that requirement as well as some of these other impacts here listed. Moving on to item number 4 is a segue from that. We are also seeking action to unify our service scholarship statutes across the board. We do administer about 10 service scholarship programs from the state of Kansas. This would be essentially to unify the penalty, interest penalty rates across these programs and move the date of compliance, move the date that penalty on interest is incurred to the date that the student is found to be out of compliance rather than the date when the student first took the scholarship on. Item number 5 has been around for a few cycles now, but we do want to keep it top and center, working with the Treasurer's Office to increase 529 investment options, specifically third-party investment options into the KIDS program. This is the Kansas Investments in Developing Scholars program that looks at low-income families at 200% federal poverty level, creates a matching 1-to-1 incentive for third-party investment in charitable organizations, and expands the program to military and veteran families. Then we move into item number 6 for some university-specific requests. Fort Hays State University is looking to exchange property with Fort Hays State University Foundation. This would be 320 acres in Ellis County. That has been looked at to develop into housing and alleviate the housing shortage in Hays. Very similar for item number 7, Kansas State University is seeking a request from the legislature to sell property in Riley County related to the honors housing and dining complex, which is off campus but is about 50 years old. There's a private buyer interested in this. The complex has been moved on campus, and K-State would be looking to sell this, which would also impact deferred maintenance. And then an item of note here, there are several, starting on item number 8 here. Let me back up here. Item number 8 is a legislative proposal to rename Kansas State University Polytechnic Campus in Salina to simply Kansas State University Salina, and also clean up language corresponding in statute. Therefore, moving on to what should start with item number 1 again. These are other items that board office staff is aware may come up in the coming legislative session that we simply felt the obligation to bring your attention, and should they come up, should the legislature choose to pursue, board office staff would step in to offer technical assistance. The first of that being the Hero Scholarship Act. This is similar to what Elaine mentioned in the provisos, broadening the eligibility for veterans and looking at some additional ways to provide showing to veteran spouses that are seeking a tuition waiver at state public institutions. Part of that proviso is a $500,000 cap that has been met. So again, working with the legislature to detail the cost of this program with any sort of change with eligibility. And lastly, again, another item that may come up in light of the U.S. Supreme Court decision on race-based admissions is the Kansas Ethnic Minority Scholarship Program. The program is designed to assist academically competitive students who are identified as members of certain ethnic and racial groups. The legislature created this program in 1989, and with the Supreme Court's June ruling on race-based admissions policy, the Board of Regents will ask the legislature to consider whether changes to the program are warranted. A review of other statutory language based on race in scholarship program legislation may also be warranted. So with that, Regents, thank you for the opportunity to present. I'll stand for questions.
Questions for Adam? That's thorough. Hey, man, you survived your first presentation to the board. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, way to go. Yeah, man. He thrived. Thrived, right? Oh, yeah. That's a good accommodation there. Okay. Let's go to the video board to hear from President Linton, who wore a tie just to be on camera. I'm proud of you. Not sure he wore pants, but he got a tie.
I got pants on too, trust me. Good afternoon, Chairman Rolfe and the rest of the Board of Regents. And I guess I am the fathead on the screen today, but my goal is to get back for the December meeting and really look forward to being back with everybody face to face. I've got 2 items today. The first one is a request to approve the naming of an outdoor classroom at K-State Center for Child Development to be called the Toynton Family Infant Toddler Outdoor Classroom in honor of Robert and the late Betty Toynton. The Toytons have been huge supporters of Kansas State University, for the College of Health and Human Sciences, for the Carl R. Ice College of Engineering, for athletics, and also for the Alumni Association. Specifically within the College of Health and Human Sciences, they have supported the Stonehouse Early Childhood Education Center, renovations to Justin Hall, as well as developing a Betty L. Toynton Deanship. And what's happening here is the Stonehouse is being converted into a new facility to be able to support the police department at Kansas State University. So the College of Health and Human Sciences would like to switch a named area within that building that's going to be repurposed into a new space that's located at a new building, which is the Center for Child Development. So with this letter dated October 25th, 2023, Kansas State University would like to request the naming of the Toynton Family Infant Toddler Outdoor Classroom.
Thank you, President Linton.
Yep.
Regent Ice.
I would like to move that approval.
I hear a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right.
All right, thank you much. Thank you much. My next request is to be able to approve peer institutions and aspirational institutions as a part of our new strategic plan. And I understand that you guys are going to bring the presentation up on screen. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So if you can
See it.
please, yep, thank you. Can everyone see it and can everyone hear me just fine?
Aye, aye, Captain.
Aye, aye. Okay, can you please go to the next slide? So Kansas State University has embarked on a strategic planning exercise over the last almost year and a half to be able to establish what we're calling the next generation K-State strategic plan, which is all about how a land-grant institution can be a next generation land-grant university. More than 10,000 stakeholder inputs over the past year and a half. We had 6 different task forces that provided recommendations, as well as an additional task force on branding and marketing to a 24-member advisory committee that would provide advice to administration and ultimately to the strategic planning process. The website's there below if you want to take a look at the full plan at your leisure. Next slide, please. Just to give you a sense, I didn't want to talk about it a lot, but just to give you a sense of where we're heading relative to metrics, we're going to have 17 core metrics that we're going to report on with the next gen K-State land grant strategic plan. But in addition, there'll be a number of other factors that we will measure as a part of this process. But I just wanted to give you an impression of what we're looking at. You can see with this slide, about a third of our metrics are associated with student recruitment, the student learner, and enhancing the student learning experience. We're also now trying to talk about degree-seeking students and non-degree seeking learners as a part of what we can do as a land-grant institution and kind of broaden our thinking around what a student is or what a learner is. Also, of course, as a part of our metrics is growth in research, both in research expenditures as well as sponsored programs and awards. Next slide, please. Moving along, you can see that there are metrics associated with outreach and engagement, with improvements to facilities and capital projects, as well as total philanthropy to the university. You'll see that we have actually 2 different kind of frameworks to metrics in the strategic plan. Those that will be measurements that will be made by 2025 and then ultimately by 2030 when the plan comes to its completion. There are a number of other metrics that we will be keeping that we don't currently have numbers for or a baseline. And so you can see things like credentials and certificate programs, international engagement, the very specific economic impact to the state, faculty, staff, and grad student compensation, which is a real challenge at K-State compared to our peers, and then total context, which is important from an extension and engagement standpoint. We will develop metric baselines for each of those last 5 metrics and develop metrics as we move forward to 2030. Next slide, please. So how did we define our goals and how did we land on recommendations that we'd like to put forward today relative to our peer and aspirational institutions? A lot of input through this entire process over the last year by internal and external stakeholders. I think we took a look at historic university data and trends that we've had over the last number of years, and then we analyzed future conditions in areas in which we believe that we could grow and move forward. And then we compared K-State against a working set of peer and aspirational institutions. Next slide, please. Again, I mentioned there was a 24-member strategic planning advisory committee. Carl Ice served as the KBOR member on that committee, which ultimately provided recommendations back to me and my team for peer and aspirational and peers. We also worked with the President's Cabinet, the Dean's Council. Next slide, please. And so when we were trying to identify peers, we looked at qualitative indices as well as quantitative indices and answered the questions: what criteria should K-State consider when thinking about comparing itself to other institutions? What institutions could K-State compare itself against today? And what institutions should we be looking about comparing ourselves in the future? From a quantitative standpoint, things like it's got to be a Carnegie R1 research classification. We looked at the size of the institution, student composition, geographic location, land grant status, comparable programs and infrastructure, funding that went to the institutions, support that's provided to our students, as well as a number of other factors. Next slide, please. Again, I don't want to go into great detail. I provided you with a number of tables which goes into much more detail, but you can see some of the institutional metrics, some of the student metrics, and some of the additional benchmarking that was considered to be able to ultimately come up with these peer and aspirational institutions. Next slide, please. So here they are. The peer institutions, and you'll see that all of these institutions are land grant institutions. Most of them do not have a medical school associated with them, but our peer institutions that we're recommending is Auburn University, Iowa State University, Oklahoma State, the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, and the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. The aspirational institutions, for very different reasons for each university, is Colorado State University, Louisiana State University, North Carolina State University, Oregon State University, Purdue University, and the University of Georgia. Next slide, please. And again, I just show you some of the comparisons that were made. This is just one of the 4 tables that I just pulled out. These are institutional metrics, and you can see here we're comparing it against just our peer institutions, and you can see a comparison amongst land grant status, if it has a medical school or not, its affiliation with a Midwest Higher Education Compact, which is a 12-state consortium, its R1 status, research expenditures, and then in-state tuition and fees and out-of-state tuition and fees to be able to have comparable information as we try to improve ourselves based on these peer institutions. Next slide, please. So now I'm happy to stand for questions, but again, our request today is for the board to approve our peer and aspirational institutions.
Questions for President Linton? Do you really know much about North Carolina State University? Put them on that list.
I know a ton about them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Any questions, or do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Regent Lane. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Regent Benson. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Well done, hanging in to the end, President Linton.
Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Chancellor Gerard, bring us home.
Thank you very much. Saving words, good news for last, right? I want to bring to you a wonderful opportunity to talk about a relationship and an opportunity between one of our institutes and one of our industry partners. The institute is the Institute for Sustainable Engineering. It's led by Dr. Mark Shiflett, who's our Foundation Distinguished Professor in Chemical and Petroleum Engineering, former long-time career at DuPont, and founded the Institute for Sustainable Engineering, really with goal to advance global sustainability through transformational engineering, science, and education. And this institute has been highly successful in almost every regard, but really specializes in multidisciplinary scientific approaches to sustainable research and applying sustainability concepts, really for both graduate and undergraduate work to advance research and development in sustainability projects. And really have moved that with industry partners and developing workforce platforms in education, both undergraduates, certificates, and undergraduate degrees, working with industry and our organization. And that institute currently resides in our engineering complex in the LEAP 2 engineering building. They have been partnered now for a handful of years with The Wonderful Company, and it's called The Wonderful Company. It is a privately held $5 billion company based out of the West Coast, out of California, and they really offer high-quality, healthy brands to really help consumers make better, healthy choices every day. And they grow, they harvest, they bottle, they package, and they market a diverse range of products, including fruits, nuts, flowers, water, wines, and juices. So think pistachios and palm. Really their diverse holdings make it, they're the largest grower of tree nuts in the world. And they are America's largest citrus grower and the world's largest flower delivery service through Teleflora network of florists. And really they believe that their brands really inspire healthier choices and support communities in very sustainable ways. So they've partnered with our Institute for Sustainable Engineering really for a number of years now and have made contributions to help develop projects together, both education and research, in excess of $5 million to date, and really working with that institute. And those gifts have really expanded our capabilities in the Institute, and they've really expanded our capabilities both in infrastructure and operational enhancements, but significantly providing graduate and undergraduate scholarships in this area and for postdoctoral fellows, and really has done some remarkable work together. And then in a very innovative way, our institute worked with them to solve a problem that they had, which was 25 acres of pistachio shells, which are not readily biodegradable. And they did not know what to do with these. They're the largest producer of shelled pistachios in the country. And this group worked very closely with them to develop a technology to grind up and mix and reutilize, not new technologies, but delivering technologies in a different way to allow them to produce products that they actually can now use those pistachio shells and take to the market. So in recognition of that as well, that is not an effort that we're able to patent because those technologies that we already have, but instead they've gone into a profit-sharing model with us, with the Institute, and so a significant percentage of the revenues generated off this new initiative to eliminate 25 acres of pistachio shells will go back to the Institute to support the many initiatives. And this has just been incredible, academic industry partnership in a way that's incredibly innovative as this institute is. And we would like to request that the institute be renamed the Wonderful Company Institute for Sustainable Engineering. That would be an internally labeled institute. It's buried within our engineering complex, but just a terrific partnership.
So 25 acres of pistachio shells, is that knee-deep 25 acres? Or?
No, that's that deep.
Oh my gosh. And what can you make out of pistachio shells? What did you guys learn? What products?
Everything from packaging products, think recycled cardboards made with combinations of this, to actually also putting it into a place where it's digestible, so pet foods and other aspects as well.
I always knew pistachios were wonderful. Now I know why.
Yeah.
All right.
So the director spoke with us at our visit, right?
Yes. Yes, that was Dr. Shipler, who also works in refrigerants. He probably talked about that.
He talked about the refrigerants,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions or comments for the Chancellor? All right, do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Moved by Regent Winter. Do I hear a second?
A second. Oh.
Second? Oh. All right. Lima gets the second. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. 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 All opposed, same sign. Congratulations. There we go.
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Any other items? Wonderful. Just absolutely wonderful. All right. Any other items to come before this board today?
It's wonderful.
Hearing none, we'll call this meeting adjourned and we'll get ready to hang with the great people of Emporia State University.